Chapter 61, C61A Strange Inside Story. Emperor Zhou, what are you? Yi Junline's eyes narrowed slightly. According to memory, this type of dynasty is different from sects and aristocratic families in that they have a mysterious power called national destiny as their trump card. The role of national luck is very mysterious. It can assist cultivation, heal one's body, and increase strength. And the common people of the world form the basis of the national destiny. If a ruler wants to gain blessings for the country, he must be recognized by the general public. Therefore, a mutually beneficial relationship is formed between the two. As the saying goes, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. At this time, Emperor Zhou didn't seem to be in a very good condition. He was taking advantage of Zhou's national fortune to heal his injuries, and he was still a bit frightened and ready to wait. Hey, Venerable Yi is making a joke. Emperor Zhou smiled bitterly. When he saw Yi Junline for the first time, he was a little surprised by Yi Junline's young appearance. After all, according to various rumors, Emperor Zhou subconsciously thought that he was a dull, pedantic, old-fashioned white-haired old man. The most important thing is that Emperor Zhou discovered that with his perfect cultivation of the Mahayana realm, he could not see through Yi Junline's specific realm. Did this person use some kind of secret technique to hide his cultivation? Emperor Zhou was a little confused. Even so, judging from the Battle of Wangzhou, Emperor Zhou also respected Yi Junline very much. Because except for himself, who carries the fate of a country, no one in the entire Zhou dynasty can pose a threat to him. Yi Junline said, Emperor Zhou, can you tell me what exactly happened? Emperor Zhou pretended to cough a few times, and the prince understood and signaled the civil and military officials to exit the hall, leaving only a few people. The ghost tribe of Mingyuan launched an offensive against me, Great Zhou, for no reason. This was something I, Great Zhou, did not expect. Many ministers in the court were speculating that there were treasures coveted by the ghost tribe in the palace, which is why they were like this. A big fight. Emperor Zhou sighed helplessly, but the problem is that even I, the leader of the Great Zhou Kingdom, don't know what this treasure is. Yi Junline was a little speechless. Are you also confused? Then how did you get this injury? In the entire Great Zhou dynasty, who can hurt a monk who has reached the perfect Mahayana realm? What's more, this is the Emperor Zhou who carries the great destiny of the country. Zun Yi asked the key point. Before the ghost army officially attacked the Great Zhou dynasty, my ancestral mausoleum was once invaded by a mysterious man. Later, I rushed to the scene immediately and used the blessing of national luck to repel that man. A mysterious person. When Emperor Zhou talked about this matter, his face was full of deep fear. The strange thing is that I can accurately feel that the mysterious man is obviously very strong, and even I am not his opponent, but he is restrained. I retreated with some scruples, and after a while, the ghost tribe began to attack me, Dazhou. Hear the words. The prince looked shocked. He originally thought that his father used the destiny of the country to forcefully repel the mysterious man who invaded the ancestral mausoleum, but he did not expect that there was such a thrilling inside story. You must know how powerful the power of national destiny is. With his father's cultivation and the use of national destiny, he is enough to compete with the best in the tribulation realm. However, even his father personally admitted that he was unbeatable. It is conceivable that the opponent's strength is how terrible. The most incredible thing is that the man actually retreated like this. Afterwards, the ghost army began to invade. There must be an inevitable connection between them. It seems that the problem lies in the ancestral mausoleum. Yi Junline's eyes flickered. Judging from Emperor Zhou's description, the ghost clan was instructed by that mysterious man to attack Zhou dynasty in order to completely capture this ancestral mausoleum. There are definitely huge interests involved behind it, otherwise I would never do such a thankless thing. But the strange thing is that since the mysterious man has the power to crush Emperor Zhou, why did he suddenly give up and retreat? And what is there about this ancestral mausoleum worth exploring? There are so many doubts. The more he thought about it, the more Yi Junline became more interested. He originally traveled to this world of cultivation, and he had a cheat-like golden finger. He didn't need to practice to lie down, so he had the mentality of playing in the world, eating, drinking and having fun. He originally thought that the day would pass like this, but he didn't expect to find out that there was a mystery behind it, which made him feel even more interesting. Is there such a strange thing? Li Wuji frowned. The red chenny next to her narrowed her eyes slightly, and a sharp light flashed in her eyes, as if she was remembering a certain rumor she had heard in the Central Territory. Emperor Zhou, if you don't feel presumptuous, can you take me to the ancestral mausoleum to see it? Yi Junline said straight to the point. Emperor Zhou sat on the dragon chair and fell into silence. How presumptuous. After all, how important is the ancestral mausoleum to the king of a country? Is it for you, an outsider, to see what you want? The prince saw his father's dilemma and said very politely, Master Yi, the ancestral mausoleum is the resting place of my ancestors. If you enter with your noble body, I'm afraid you will be contaminated with bad things. Then he changed the topic and said respectfully, Venerable Yi has come here and helped us repel the ghost army. He deserves to be warmly entertained by me, the great Zhou dynasty. The state banquet prepared in the imperial dining room is about to begin, so we might as well move to enjoy it at Tianhe Hall. Emperor Zhou also spoke at this time, Master Yi, please forgive me for not being able to meet this request. The ancestral mausoleum of the Zhou royal family cannot be opened casually, but as the most distinguished guest, I will give you the most generous treatment. You can choose any treasure from the treasury. It can be seen that Emperor Zhou is still very sincere. Yi Junlin raised his eyebrows. I am a man with a system. I can be rich enough to rival a country just by signing in every day. How can I lack the things in your treasury? Although Dazhou is one of the immortal dynasties in the East region, the treasury must have many treasures that make outsiders crazy after years of accumulation, but in Yi Junlin's eyes, there is no attraction at all. He is just curious about the intention of the mysterious man to invade the ancestral tomb. Since he is unwilling to open it, Yi Junlin will not force him. He is a casual person. Well, Yi Junlin waved his hand. The prince secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, I know that Venerable Yi is a reasonable person. Everyone, please come this way. Then, everyone went to the state banquet. At this time, outside the territory of Dazhou, there is a mountain with a gloomy and terrifying environment. It is clearly a sunny day, but the sun's rays cannot shine in at all. Every few blocks of the road, you can see a few ghost soldiers wearing armor and holding spears standing guard. They have no expression on their faces and exude a strong yin energy. Deep in the mountain, there is a palace built of bones. The table is full of plates, which are all processed flesh, various human organs, and black and white eyeballs. The smell of blood permeates the air. A ghost creature with gray skin and a single horn on his forehead sits on a throne covered with human skin. His palm as big as a palm fan grabs a bunch of eyeballs in the air and throws them into his mouth to chew. His ugly face shows a comfortable look. My king, this is your wine. At its feet, there is a human female cultivator with disheveled hair, naked, and covered with scars. She holds up a bronze tripod with trembling hands, which is filled with bright red and sticky blood. This is the blood of a 1-month-old baby. The one-horned ghost king took the cup and drank it all. After throwing the cup away, he forcibly hugged the female cultivator in his arms and laughed, it's great. It was very excited to lead the tribe to leave the nether abyss and fight in the outside world, and no longer have to live that boring life without light. After so many years, I finally waited for this opportunity. I must seize the opportunity to perform well. If I can successfully capture the great Zhou dynasty, my prestige in the ghost tribe will be higher. The most important thing is, as long as I get the recognition of those people, I may have a place in the East region in the future. The one-horned ghost king rubbed his chin and sneered. The female cultivator was trembling, her pretty face was full of despair. She was a Jindan casual cultivator in Kangzhou. Later, she was unfortunately captured by the other party and suffered painful torture day and night. During this period, she saw too many inhumane scenes. She was mentally broken and wanted to die. However, the other party was too powerful and had been manipulated, so she didn't even have the qualifications to commit suicide. It's been so long, why hasn't there been any news? With the strength of Kunta and the others, it's enough to force Emperor Zhou to take action. The one who I fear most is the guy who carries the fate of the country. The one-horned ghost king looked fierce. At this moment, a strange black mist floated into the hall, and a mysterious man in a black robe and hood walked out. A low and hoarse voice came from under the brim of the hat, containing uncontrollable anger. Waste, what are you still doing here? Hearing this, instead of being annoyed, the one-horned ghost king was horrified. He fell to his knees from the throne and said in a trembling voice, I pay my respects to the envoy. Chapter 62, C62 You are such a vulgar person. Facing the mysterious man's angry rebuke, the one-horned ghost king was filled with fear and did not dare to complain at all. Because the person in front of him is one of the main messengers behind the scenes. He is a being that all creatures in the abyss must rely on. The fate of all races in the future will be in their hands. Now all the tribes in the underworld are taking action for the holy war, but you, as the ghost king, are hiding in the rear to have fun. Do I understand that the ghost tribe has given up? The black-robed messenger said coldly. What an injustice. I have sent troops to attack the Zhou dynasty. I believe that Emperor Zhou will be forced to take action soon. Then his true identity will be exposed. I will be more confident in dealing with him. The one-horned ghost king was frightened. His heart trembled, and he quickly explained. If this causes a misunderstanding and delays the future of the entire ghost clan, why don't the other ghost kings join forces to tear it apart to vent their anger? The black-robed envoy laughed angrily. Idiot, the 800,000 troops you sent out were already destroyed outside the capital just now. It didn't have any impact on Emperor Zhou. How is that possible? The one-horned ghost king's head was buzzing and his face was shocked. In this army of 800,000, there are dozens of ghost generals in the fusion realm alone, and there are 10 ghost commanders in the Mahayana realm sitting in charge. If the Emperor of Zhou does not come out, he will definitely overthrow the great Zhou dynasty. As a result, he didn't even get into the capital, so he died completely. This great Zhou dynasty is actually so powerful. The one-horned ghost king looked ugly. The black-robed envoy said coldly, the one who destroyed your 800,000 strong army was not the great Zhou dynasty, but a monk who happened to be passing through the great Zhou dynasty. The people in the capital at that time called him Lord Yi. Venerable, the one-horned ghost king was stunned, and then became angry. A foreign Mahayana monk dared to disrupt its plan. I am really impatient to live. Although it was surprised by the opponent's strength, for it in the tribulation realm, a mere Mahayana was nothing at all. Just in case, I give you this Mingyuan pill. You must win Dajo for me. I won't allow you to fail again. The black-robed messenger's voice was ruthless. A purple elixir densely covered with mysterious patterns slowly floated in front of the one-horned ghost king. The one-horned ghost king knew that this was his last chance, so he immediately made up his mind and said in a deep voice, if I go this time, I will definitely fulfill the envoy's wish. Ha ha, the black-robed messenger sneered, and his whole body turned into a black mist and disappeared, as if he had never appeared before. Ha, the one-horned ghost king breathed a sigh of relief and raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead. Thinking that this plan was almost ruined, he felt extremely angry inside. Boom! The terrifying evil spirit suddenly erupted, and the entire mountain peak trembled. The one-horned ghost king turned his head and glanced, raised his hand to grab the female cultivator who was huddled in the corner, and growled with a fierce look, do you think my behavior just now is ridiculous? Say it. The female cultivator turned pale with fright, and said in horror, Sir, your majesty, this little girl definitely doesn't. Bitch, you're lying. Bang! The one-horned ghost king was so angry that he grabbed her and flew into the sky. His roar echoed like thunder in all directions, all soldiers, follow me to the battle. Yes. Then, countless ghost shadows followed the one-horned ghost king, carrying the black mist and heading straight towards Dajo. Tianhe Hall. Several beautiful and veiled palace maids danced gracefully, matching the beautiful music played by the geisha, creating a unique artistic conception. At this time, Yi Junlin and the others were enjoying the highest-level state banquet in the Great Zhou dynasty. These ingredients are not ordinary things. They are either rare birds and animals, or taken from natural materials and treasures. Therefore, each dish is priceless and contains many benefits. Ordinary monks can even break through on the spot and benefit a lot from eating it. Li Wuji picked up the wine jar, raised his head and drank it all. His face was a little red, and he praised, this wine is really exciting. Bai Xiaoxi picked up a piece of meat and put it in her mouth to chew, with a happy expression on her face, it's delicious. Hong Chenyi took a few bites and didn't move her chopsticks again. This move made the prince's heart pick up in his throat, and he tentatively said, Red Fairy, is there something that doesn't suit your taste? Hong Chenyi crossed his arms and closed his eyes to rest. He just had no appetite for these so-called delicacies. Seeing this, the prince looked embarrassed. Yi Junlin said, ignore him, he is losing weight. I see, Red Fairy is really self-disciplined. The prince sighed. I'm going to lose some weight on your sister. Hong Chiba's eye muscles twitched and she suppressed the anger in her heart, but for now she had no choice but to turn a deaf ear and swallow her anger. The prince picked up the wine glass, stood up and toasted to Yi Junlin, and said loudly, Sir Yi, it is an honor for me to entertain such a distinguished guest as you on behalf of Zhou dynasty. I will do it first, you can do as you like. After saying that, drink it all in one gulp. Easy to say. Yi Junlin nodded. The reason why he stayed here was to see if the Ghost Clan had any new moves, because the rewards for the tasks previously released by the system had not been distributed yet, which made Yi Junlin realize that the tasks had not been completed satisfactorily. Snap! Suddenly, the prince clapped his hands, and all the maids retreated. An old man wearing a grey robe and a calm face walked into the hall with a guqin on his back. This is Master Nangong. He is the well-deserved #1 musician from the great Zhou dynasty. He is very famous in many places in Kangzhou. The music he plays is not only beautiful, but also contains some profound Taoist meaning, which is very important to practitioners. It's an excellent experience. There once was a nascent soul monk who was nearing the end of his life. He came all the way to listen to the music he played, and he immediately gained insights and achieved a breakthrough on the spot. The prince introduced, "I, Nangong Changfeng, have met you all." Nangong Changfeng was neither humble nor arrogant, he cupped his hands and bowed and said calmly. Every move he made showed an indescribable arrogance. Yi Junlin rubbed his chin, wondering why this old guy looked so naughty. "Master Nangong, please start," the prince said in a respectful tone. Nangong Changfeng sat cross-legged on the ground, placed the guzheng on his knees, and slowly plucked the strings with his fingers, making a wonderful sound that resounded throughout the universe. Zheng, the music is very coherent and smooth, echoing in all directions, and seems to be able to cleanse people's souls. The whole process. Li Wuji's face was a little moved, and he listened carefully. Bai Shaoxi was so intoxicated that she couldn't help but shake her body slightly. Hong Chenyi's face was expressionless, and she didn't even bother to raise her eyelids. As for Yi Junlin, when he heard the second half, he even let out a long yawn, held his head with one hand, and fell asleep. Nangong Changfeng saw it in his eyes, and his old face became more and more gloomy. What's the meaning? Is this contempt for my piano skills? How many monks heard the music he played and felt grateful as if they had received a treasure, but why did it become a lullaby here? Nangong Changfeng felt that his self-esteem was frustrated, and he finished playing while holding his breath. He stood up and said coldly, "Your Highness, if this is the case in the future, there is no need for you to invite me. I can't afford to embarrass this person." The prince coughed a few times. "Master Nangong, what do you mean?" Nangong Changfeng pointed at Yi Junlin on the main seat and said angrily, "Ask him." The prince said cautiously, "Master Yi, do you feel dissatisfied with the music played by Master Nangong?" Yi Junlin picked his ears and said, "It's just so-so." He liked music with high melody, but Nangong Changfeng played it too gently, and he was a smelly old man, so Yi Junlin was not interested at all. As for the Taoist meaning contained in the sound of the piano, it has no effect at all on a person who usually lies flat and rotten, and his cultivation relies entirely on playing porcelain. The prince looked embarrassed. He didn't expect that even the music played by Master Nangong was rated as so-so. This gave the prince a very ridiculous feeling. He had been so fascinated just now. The prince's mind moved, and he looked at Hong Chenyi, who was still closed, and said secretly, "Did you see that even the red fairy is immersed in it, closing her eyes and having endless aftertaste?" After receiving this evaluation, Nangong Changfeng was so angry that he almost vomited blood. This was a naked humiliation for him who was proud and famous. It is a trample on his personality. "Shut up, you vulgar guy, you don't understand music at all," Nangong Changfeng angrily scolded in public. Boom, a fierce murderous aura erupted. "Old guy, you already have a way to kill yourself." Li Wuji's eyes flashed with cold light. He grabbed the handle of the knife at his waist and stood up suddenly, with the intention of drawing out the knife and slashing at Nangong Changfeng. As long as the master gives permission, he will immediately hack Nangong Changfeng to death. Chapter 63. C63 Just have hands. The prince's forehead was covered with cold sweat. How could someone die out of nowhere? He regretted it very much. If he had known earlier, he would not have invited Nangong Changfeng to play a song on the spot. He really did something wrong. Being locked by the terrifying killing intent, Nangong Changfeng's hairs exploded and his face changed drastically, but he did not beg for mercy. Instead, he stiffened his neck and looked at Yi Junlin angrily. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied. "Your Highness Yi, Master Nangong's temper is like this. He actually has no other intentions, but he speaks his mind." The prince wiped the cold sweat. "Your Highness, I can't stand this insult. Even if I die, I have to say that this guy doesn't understand music theory at all. He is just a rough man who only knows how to fight and kill. Why do you say that my piano skills are so-so?" Nangong Changfeng pointed at Yi Junlin and shouted excitedly. "You hey!" The prince shook his head helplessly. He only hoped that Nangong Changfeng would die decently. After all, he was the #1 musician in the great Zhou dynasty. At this time, the atmosphere on the scene was very tense. Li Wuji looked at Nangong Changfeng with a bad look. Hong Chenny closed his eyes, his face was calm as usual, but the subtle arc of his mouth exposed his true thoughts. Good scolding, I am optimistic about you. Although the playing is indeed very ordinary. After all, Hong Chenny was once a cultivator in the central region. He came from a big place and had a wider range of experience. For example, Nangong Changfeng's level is at most at the middle and lower level there. Yi Junlin sat in the main seat, feeling speechless, and just wanted to say something. In his mind, the system prompt sound suddenly rang. Ding, congratulations to the host for triggering the option task. Closing square bracket. Option 1. The host was angry and ordered Nangong Changfeng to be executed. After the task was completed, 10 high-quality spirit crystals were obtained. Closing square bracket. Option 2. The host plays a song in person to make Nangong Changfeng feel ashamed, and is rewarded with 10 bags of top-quality pet feed milky flavor. Closing square bracket. Top-quality pet feed, the more you eat, the faster you grow. Huh, there is an option task at this time. Yi Junlin raised his eyebrows. Option 1 is simple, but the reward is too little. Now he has more than 10 million top-quality spirit crystals for a meal. Moreover, asking him to order the execution of Nangong Changfeng is considered to be furious in the eyes of others. If this gets out, it will damage his perfect image. And option 2 is to play a song in person and slap Nangong Changfeng in the face. If successful, you will get 10 bags of top-quality pet feed. According to the description of the item, it can increase the cultivation experience of the pet and has the effect of accelerating growth. Now his Mount Kunpeng has the cultivation of the early stage of Mahayana. Relying on the pure blood of the ancient mythical beast, it is almost invincible in the same realm. However, if you can make further breakthroughs, it will be more dazzling to show off when you take it out. If there is top-quality pet feed, the cultivation level will be improved faster, and there is no need to wait for it to grow slowly. The thought turned. Looking at the Nangong Changfeng who was glaring at him and fearless, Yi Junlin slowly rolled up his sleeves and smiled crookedly. Isn't it just playing a song? I just need hands. The clear voice echoed in the hall, and everyone else was stunned. Nangong Changfeng was so angry that his face turned liver-colored. Just hands. What arrogant words. When he was young, he became a disciple of a famous teacher and worked hard to improve his zither skills. Thousands of years have passed. He dared not say that he was the top in zither, but he was one of the few in the entire eastern region. As a result, this guy in front of him dared to say that he just needed hands. It turned out to be a demon who killed people like crazy. Simple-minded and strong limbs. The prince looked strange, and secretly said, "You are too confident. If you really only need hands, then where are the masters in this world?" As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialty, and the same is true for practitioners. After all, no matter how strong you are, you can't be omniscient and omnipotent, right? There must be blind spots in your knowledge. The prince felt that Yi Junlin was pretending a little too much. In a word, it is better to kill than to humiliate. Nangong Changfeng is a master after all. If he offended you with words, you can kill him. Who makes you higher in status and stronger? But you are talking big now, which is quite embarrassing. Master is right, just have hands. Li Wuji puffed up his chest and said proudly. Although he didn't know why he was proud, in short, whatever the master said, he, as a disciple, should just praise him without thinking. Come on, come if you dare, I'll lend you my Fuyao to play. Let's see what kind of earth-shattering music you can play. Nangong Changfeng laughed in anger. What? You don't dare, ha ha ha, I knew you were bragging. If you can play it, so's will climb trees. A practitioner like you who only knows how to fight and kill, what the hell do you know about the way of the Qin? The prince lowered his head, sweating coldly. He thought it was just a simple meal, but he didn't expect things to develop to this point. He secretly glanced at the silver-haired young man, and was really afraid that the other party would break his defense on the spot, and he would be so angry that he would start a killing spree. What was surprising was that Yi Junlin was not angry, but smiled and said, "Okay, then I'll try." HMPH, take it. Nangong Changfeng was stunned at first, and then sneered again and again, looking forward to seeing this arrogant guy make a fool of himself. The Fuyao floated in front of Yi Junlin, and each string exuded a crystal luster, which looked extremely extraordinary. Yi Junlin gently stroked the body of the zither, thinking to himself, Tongzi, what is the level of my zither skills? He remembered that when he signed in before, he had opened an experience pack for learning musical instruments, which meant that he didn't need to study hard, just upgrade with one click. Ding, warm reminder, the host's piano skills are currently at the pinnacle. Closing square bracket. The system prompt sounded. The skill levels are beginner, master, outstanding, superb, and pinnacle. Nangong Changfeng, who has studied hard for almost a lifetime, can barely reach the level of master, but even so, he can enjoy a great reputation in Kangzhou and be sought after by countless cultivators. Now, Yi Junline's piano skills have quietly reached the pinnacle, which is so terrifying. Hurry up, don't dawdle. Nangong Changfeng showed contempt, thinking that Yi Junline was deliberately making a mystery. Shut up, my master is looking for a feeling, Li Wuji said in a thick face. The prince rubbed his eyebrows and felt that he couldn't bear to look directly. He could already foresee what kind of unpleasant song Yi Junline would play. Yi Junline pressed the strings with his left hand and picked up the notes with his right hand. He exhaled deeply and plucked the strings with his fingers flexibly. Clang clang clang, the sound of the piano suddenly sounded. The melody was passionate and ups and downs, with a murderous aura. There was also a kind of heroic intention of looking down on the world and who else but me. Swish, Hong Chenny suddenly opened his eyes, and a flash of incredible shock flashed in his eyes. This is. Clang clang clang, Yi Junline was full of momentum, the fingering of the playing became more and more violent, the melody became more and more passionate and uplifting, it was simply magnificent. The song he played was, Power to Rule the World, in his previous life. Chapter 64, C64 The Miserable One-Horned Ghost King. Nangong Changfeng first stroked his beard and sneered, then frowned, and finally pulled his beard off in fear, dumbfounded. The prince was shocked, his blood boiled, and his breathing became rapid. Li Wuji's face flushed, his heart almost jumped out of his chest, and the beating sound was like a drum. Burning, it's so burning. Yi Junline was immersed in the state, his fingering was so fast that it was blurred, leaving traces on the strings, his long silver white hair was flying, his eyes were flowing with brilliant divine light, and his skin exuded a crystal-like luster like unpolished jade. Everyone suddenly had an illusion that it seemed that there was an ancient god king playing the peerless piano in front of them. How did he play such a wonderful piece of music? This level of superb skill is the top level in the central region, and no one dares to compete with him. Hong Chenny's face was shocked, and he felt the meaning of the great way contained in the sound of the piano. Combining his experience of being a big shot in the central region, he had a new understanding. Boom! Hong Chenny's momentum rose steadily, from the early stage of Mahayana, the middle stage, the late stage, the peak, and then to perfection. He was only one step away from the realm of crossing the tribulation. Li Wuji stood still like a clay sculpture, and also entered the state of enlightenment. Crack, the bottleneck was broken, and the realm broke through from the fusion to the Mahayana. A breath hundreds of times stronger than before was released from his body, his black hair was flying, and his eyes were cold like lightning. He looked at Yi Junline, his eyes were full of fanaticism. Boom! At this time, a terrible momentum broke out from Yi Junline. The prince was shocked and said in a lost voice, middle stage of the crossing tribulation realm. You are actually a virtual immortal. With the blessing of cultivation and the peak of the zither skills, Yi Junline played, Power to Rule the World, as if assisted by God. Jung jung jung, strange ripples spread out, connecting the avenues to form a resonance, and the sound spread across the mountains and rivers for 90,000 miles. The common people living on this land were all bathed in the cleansing of the zither sound. Those poor people who were seriously ill and bedridden for years had a brand new mental outlook, and their old diseases disappeared. They ran out excitedly, walking briskly and cheering. The soldiers of the Great Zhou, including the monks of various sects, had enlightenment one after another, and their cultivation broke through one after another. This is a miracle, miracle, God bless my Great Zhou. Everyone was grateful and shouted. Buzz buzz buzz. Invisibly, the national fortune of the Great Zhou was rising wildly. Xuanzheng Hall, Emperor Zhou was enveloped in white light. He suddenly seemed to feel something. With the help of national destiny and years of accumulation, he directly broke through the shackles in his body for many years. Starting today, Emperor Zhou officially promoted to the realm of crossing the calamity, becoming the only virtual immortal level king among the major immortal dynasties in Kangzhou. Which senior is helping my Great Zhou? Listen to the source of this piano sound, it seems to come from the Tianhe Palace. Could it be? Emperor Zhou breathed rapidly, his eyes full of awe. At the same time, the ghost army that broke into the territory of the Great Zhou, led by the one-horned ghost king, was aggressive all the way and wanted to kill into the capital. But unexpectedly, the situation changed. The passionate and turbulent piano sound echoed in the sky, containing extremely mysterious power. For the human race, the piano sound played by Yi Junlin is extremely beneficial, but if it is replaced by the creatures of the underworld, it is a fatal injury. Ah! A large group of black fog covering the sky and the sun, screams came one after another. Many ghost creatures were emitting white smoke all over their bodies, and their flesh and blood were melting rapidly. Even if they used their magic power to resist, it would not work. This kind of damage was like a curse. "My king, save us quickly," the subordinates wailed with painful faces. The one-horned ghost king was shocked and angry, releasing a storm-like murderous aura all over his body, and roared to the sky, "Who is attacking? Get out of here, what's the point of hiding?" The roar caused the mountain to collapse, and the sky almost collapsed. Unfortunately, the sound of the piano still echoed, without any interruption at all. In just a few breaths, the dense ghost creatures were wiped out, and the original 200,000 ghost army was reduced to less than 10. Several ghost generals were struggling to support, their bodies were almost melted, and they released information through weak mental fluctuations. "My king, retreat quickly, the human race has a great man in charge." Then, they disappeared one by one. No, the one-horned ghost king's eyes were bloodshot, and he roared in grief and anger. His body was covered with scars, which was shocking, but because he had the cultivation of the early stage of the tribulation realm to support him, he was least affected and barely held on to the end. But for the one-horned ghost king, the whole process was simply painful and tormenting. "Who is it? Who is it?" the one-horned ghost king screamed, and he did not choose to retreat. Instead, he held back a violent anger in his heart and rushed forward. The one-horned ghost king knew that he had no way out. He led 1,000,000 troops to attack the Great Zhou, but the whole army was annihilated. If he did not do something, he would be judged even if he returned. Soon, the white smoke on the one-horned ghost king's body sizzled, and the pain was heartbreaking and deep in his bones, and even his soul was trembling. "No, if this goes on." The one-horned ghost king gritted his teeth, and a purple pill appeared in his hand, which was filled with an evil breath. "This is the Nether Yuan pill given by the messenger. At this point, I have no choice but to take it. I will find the powerful person behind the scenes no matter what the cost." The one-horned ghost king swallowed the pill, howled at the sky, and 2 dark purple rays of light shot out from his eyes. He felt the power in his body surging and burning, and his cultivation level leapt from the early stage of the tribulation to the late stage of the tribulation. Boom! The one-horned ghost king's aura became extremely terrifying, and his body was covered with dark purple light, like a strange meteor sweeping away into the distance. Wherever he passed, the people below were all shocked. The one-horned ghost king could feel that as his cultivation level increased, the effect of the piano music on him became smaller. Everything came from that Mingyuan pill. The one-horned ghost king knew that this should be temporary, and there might be unimaginable side effects later, but he had no way to retreat and had to complete the task assigned by the messenger. Kill, kill, kill. The one-horned ghost king's eyes were bloodshot, and his face was murderous. As long as he had a breath left, he would break into the capital and kill people. Obviously, this had become the obsession of the one-horned ghost king. Clang clang clang. At this moment, the passionate piano music reached its climax, and the mysterious power released became stronger and stronger. In various places of Dazhou, strange phenomena appeared one after another, shocking the world. A bright moon rises from the sea. A beautiful picture of mountains and rivers. The stars shine in the blue sky. The sun and the moon shine together. The dragon and the phoenix sing together. The whole Dazhou was boiling, and the cheers shook the earth. What? The one-horned ghost king was horrified, and his body fell to the bottom of the valley as if he was hit hard, raising a huge amount of dust. Ah 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 ah. The one-horned ghost king had a painful face and screamed shrilly, like a wild boar rolling in the mud. The blood in his body was rapidly disappearing, revealing the white bones, and even the bones were covered with spider webs, as if they would collapse in the next second. "Who did it? Who is it? Come out here if you dare." The one-horned ghost king completely collapsed. He only wanted to see the person playing the piano behind the scenes. He didn't want to die in such an unclear way. Unfortunately, even this thought became a luxury. The human race has a great terror. The one-horned ghost king was terrified. He was very unwilling, very unwilling. A ghost king who had crossed the calamity realm didn't know who killed him until he died. It was really cowardly. In the end, the one-horned ghost king was in despair. His whole body collapsed and turned into dust and dissipated, and his consciousness was forever silent in the darkness. In Tianhe Hall, Yi Junlin's fingers plucked the strings of the piano. His fingering was not as open and closed as before, and his momentum began to converge. After a while, power to rule the world, was finished. The whole audience was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Yi Junlin exhaled heavily and wiped the sweat from his forehead. I was so excited just now that I was in a state of ecstasy. The song, Power to Rule the World, is really awesome. Ding, congratulations to the host for defeating the ghost army, and reward the 5 elements of immortal spirit roots: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Closing square bracket. In my mind, the system prompt sounded playfully. Yi Junlin. Warm reminder. If you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 65, C65 Stargate. What's going on? Did I do anything? From beginning to end, apart from playing the music, I didn't see even a single ghost creature. How to defeat the ghost army? Yi Junlin joked. Tongzi, are you having trouble? Ding, the ghost army that broke into the Great Zhou dynasty was destroyed by the sound of the host playing the piano just now. This system is professional, please do not question this system. Be careful, this system will cry to you, ying ying ying, close black lens bracket. The system explains. Yi Junlin's expression suddenly dawned, that's it. Then, he felt the changes taking place in his body, which were extremely rare immortal grade 5 element spiritual roots. With such spiritual roots, elemental arts are at your fingertips, and the power after release will be even more terrifying. Take the Wuji reincarnation Great Destruction technique as an example. If Yi Junlin continues to use this technique, the overall lethality will be greatly increased. Once it goes down, it's like a natural disaster. It sounds great. Master is so amazing. Bai Shaoxi was the first to recover and shouted excitedly. Yi Junlin pretended to cough a few times, and said with an indifferent expression, I said, as long as you have hands. Aha! The Fuyao Qin was filled with brilliance and floated before Nangong Changfeng's eyes again. At this time, Nangong Changfeng was trembling all over, his eyes were red, and he shed 2 tears of regret, muttering, what a wonderful divine song this is, wonderful, wonderful. He felt that his whole body and mind had been cleansed, it was extremely transparent from the inside out, and his whole soul had been sublimated. Compared with this miraculous piano skill, his level is nothing. Poor him, he is still complacent, claiming to be a master of the piano, and he deserves to be admired by thousands of people, but in fact he is just sitting in a well and watching the sky. Senior is right, my playing is really so-so. What's funny is that I actually didn't know my own abilities and reprimanded my senior as a vulgar person who doesn't understand music theory. I deserve to die, I really deserve to die. Nangong Changfeng was so ashamed that he fell to his knees, hugged his beloved Gukan and cried loudly, his cry full of sorrow. Master Nangong, the prince was stunned. No, I don't deserve to be called a master. The senior is the one who deserves to be called a master. I am just a clown. A complete clown, Nangong Changfeng cried in collapse. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the optional task and receiving 10 bags of top-quality pet animal feed. Close black lens bracket. The system prompt sounded, and Yi Junlin knew that his goal had been achieved. Yi Shushan, how do you want to deal with him? After the prince knew that Yi Junlin was a master in the tribulation realm, his attitude became more respectful and he asked cautiously. Yi Junlin waved his hand, let him stand down. Anyway, he has successfully slapped him in the face, so he doesn't have to argue with the other party. Hear the words. The prince felt more and more admiration in his heart, and he cupped his hands and said, Yi Shushan has a broad mind, I admire you a little. He turned to look at the lost old man, sighed and said, come here, take Nangong Changfeng down. 2 guards with swords rushed in and dragged away the crying Nangong Changfeng. Li Wuji snorted coldly, this old guy is lucky. Otherwise, I would have to hack him to death. Then, he looked at Yi Junlin with admiration and said excitedly, Master, thanks to your music just now, my disciple has broken through the Mahayana. Yeah, Yi Junlin nodded. Glancing at Hong Chenny from the corner of his eye, he found that this person had reached Mahayana perfection. Yi Junlin sighed with emotion in his heart. This person who has become an immortal is different. He will break through the tribulation so soon. Hong Chenny pretended to be calm, but her heart was already in turmoil. He didn't expect that Yi Junlin had such ability, just one piece of music could save him thousands of years of hard work. Is this what people with great luck have? It's really scary. Wait, isn't this a good thing? I can use him to restore my cultivation faster. Hong Chenny thought about it and regained her confidence, secretly saying, Yi Junlin, just wait, I will surpass you soon. A person like you, who spends all day lying around, is not worthy of such a great fate. I will repay you double the humiliation you have brought to me. At this time, Hong Chenny had already thought of various ways to torture Yi Junlin, such as asking Yi Junlin to wash his feet in turn, and then drink up all the foot-washing water, and then be grateful afterward. Just imagining that scene made Hong Chenny tremble with excitement, and she couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth. Aha! At this time, a dragon-robed figure appeared in the hall, emitting a terrifying aura of transcending the tribulation realm. Father, you have made a breakthrough, the prince said happily. With a true void immortal level powerhouse sitting in charge, Dajo's position in Kangzhou will be even more solid. Coupled with this overwhelming blessing of national luck, looking at the tribulation realm, how many are his father's opponents? Unexpectedly, Emperor Zhou looked at the silver-haired young man sitting on the throne. Without any hesitation, he bowed to the ground and vowed loudly, "On behalf of the people of the great Zhou dynasty, I would like to thank Yi Shushan for playing the divine music and blessing the common people." The prince was dumbfounded. The majestic king of a country, a powerful man who can overcome calamities, lowers his posture to such an extent. So how strong should Xuantianzong be? Get up, it's your ability to break through the tribulation. Yi Junlin waved his hand. Emperor Zhou stood up and said in awe, "Yi Shushan is joking. Because of the divine music you played, the national destiny of the great Zhou dynasty has reached an unprecedented peak. I also took this opportunity to make a breakthrough by chance." Before, his realm was the Mahayana perfection, and he was a bit wary of Yi Junlin, but that was all. He felt that no matter how strong the opponent was, he could still suppress him with the help of the national destiny. After all, this is Dazhou, his home ground, not a remote deserted state. But now, after understanding the piano music containing the sound of the great Tao, Zhou Huang, who had a breakthrough in his cultivation, suddenly had a bright vision and finally saw the horror of the master of the Piaomiao peak of Xuantian sect. It turned out that what he saw before was just the tip of the iceberg. The gap between his strength and others can never be made up by the blessing of national destiny. Realizing this, Zhou Huang hurriedly came out to express his attitude, throwing all the face of the monarch behind his mind, and directly put his posture to the lowest. First hug the thigh and talk. Yi Junlin thought, "It seems that you are really grateful to me." Yes, as long as Yi Shushan speaks, my Dazhou will definitely cooperate with everything within our power. Zhou Huang said in a deep voice. Okay, then take me to visit the ancestral mausoleum. Okay, please come this way, I'll lead the way for you. The Crown Prince. The ancestral mausoleum. It is the most heavily guarded place in the entire palace, and it is also the burial place of the rulers of the great Zhou dynasty. The Emperor Zhou waved his hand, removed various restrictions, and then led Yi Junlin and others into the ancestral mausoleum. The interior of the ancestral mausoleum is very large, and there is an ancient atmosphere coming towards you. In fact, except for the burial objects in the ancestral mausoleum that can interest tomb robbers, other places are mediocre. Even I can't figure out why it was targeted by that kind of existence, and even encouraged the ghost tribe to attack the great Zhou just to occupy this place. The Emperor Zhou said helplessly. These days, there are so many strange things. Li Wuji said. Until the few people walked to the end of the passage. Yi Junlin raised his eyebrows, and indeed did not find anything unusual. Forget it, just go back the same way. Just as Yi Junlin shook his head and prepared to leave this boring place, Hong Chenny behind him narrowed his eyes slightly, pinched his fingers with one hand, and tentatively cast a spell forward. Rumble, the sound of a millstone rolling came from the void. Gradually, an ancient and vast stargate appeared, exuding a mysterious atmosphere. This is, Emperor Zhou widened his eyes, not expecting this situation at all. Why would there be such a thing in the Zhou ancestral mausoleum? As Emperor Zhou, he had no idea. Yi Junlin turned his head to look at Hong Chenny who triggered this scene, and found that the other party's face was also very surprised. Wow, this door is so beautiful. Bai Shaoxi's eyes sparkled, and she looked around the stargate curiously. When she stretched out her tender little hand to touch it, she found that it passed through, as if what she saw was just an illusion and this stargate did not exist at all. But Yi Junlin knew that this stargate definitely existed, but it had not yet materialized in the real world. If you want to activate it completely, you may have to pay a certain price. Emperor Zhou, how long has this dynasty existed so far? Yi Junlin asked. Emperor Zhou looked a little proud, reporting to Yi Shushan, my great Zhou has existed for 1.2 million years. A cultivation force, no matter what form it exists in, as long as it can last for millions of years, is qualified to be called an immortal sect, because this means that there is a great chariot town in every generation, and the great chariot must be continuous from generation to generation. Once the great chariot is lost, it is possible to be removed from the immortal sect. And Emperor Zhou, as a powerful person in the realm of tribulation, is also the only virtual immortal level king among the current immortal dynasties in Kangzhou. Before the Great Zhou, were there any countries? Yi Junlin continued to ask. Emperor Zhou was stunned and said truthfully, according to the existing historical records, there are at least dozens of them, and some of them are even impossible to investigate. In the endless years of billions of years, an immortal dynasty like the Great Zhou, which lasted for millions of years, is actually just a drop in the ocean. Yi Junlin frowned. So, this stargate can be traced back to a more distant period. Perhaps there were records about this stargate before, but after experiencing various turmoil, it has long been buried in the dust of history. And the ancestral tomb was built at this location by coincidence. Even the successive rulers of the Great Zhou dynasty were unaware of it. They just simply thought that the feng shui of this place was better. Looking at the eldest disciple with a changing face, Yi Junlin said meaningfully, Zhao Hong, tell me, do you know anything? Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumb speed 01. Container. Tabula below article thumbnail. 300 times 250 feet. Placement. Below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet. Target _type. Mix. Chapter 66. C66 Li Da Pu. Swish, swish, swish. All eyes were focused on Hong Chenny. Hong Chenny hesitated for a while, then said, as for the origin of this stargate, the disciples only heard it from hearsay, and there is no real evidence. It's okay, but it doesn't matter. Yi Junlin waved his hand. According to rumors, in the distant ancient times, there were many teleportation nodes all over the Kunlun realm, which could directly reach the world. Countless Kunlun monks could travel through the universe with ease. I don't know what happened later. These teleportation nodes were used by the sages. The seal has never been opened again. Hear the words. Everyone was shocked and looked at the illusory stargate. This thing actually has such a function. There are legends that the Kunlun realm is a huge cultivation planet. There are many planets like this, all over the boundless universe. In the past, monks could travel back and forth freely. As long as they are God-transforming monks, they can fly out of the Kunlun realm and travel around the void of the universe. But I don't know when, an invisible force restricted the Kunlun monks, making them unable to fly to the universe, and they could only live in this world until they died. The only way to solve it is to overcome the tribulation and become a true immortal, and then ascend to the immortal world naturally. Only through the immortal world can you be qualified to go to the universe. However, how easy is it to overcome a calamity and become an immortal? So for 99% of the monks, they can only stay in the Kunlun world for the rest of their lives. And now this stargate can ignore this restriction and easily reach all parts of the universe. If this spreads out, it will definitely cause an uproar. The prince said excitedly, Father, with this, I, the Great Zhou dynasty, can expand our territory. This is a rare opportunity. In his imagination, the universe must contain many precious cultivation resources. If Da Zhou can take the lead in starting overseas expansion, then the national power will definitely increase rapidly and create countless strong men. That's right, Emperor Zhou was also moved. This was a huge temptation that any ruler could not resist. Idiot, you are thinking shit, Yi Junlin sneered. Hearing this, the father and son looked embarrassed and muttered, Yi Shushan, what do you mean? Are you so sure that Da Zhou has the ability to start interstellar expansion, instead of being invaded by alien races from outside the territory? If it is really conducive to the development of the Kunlun realm, why are these stargates sealed by the sages? For example, why did that mysterious man go to such trouble to send ghosts to occupy this place? Use your brains. Yi Junlin's series of scoldings were like ice water that extinguished the ambitions of the father and son. Thinking of the recent turmoil, they suddenly thought about it and became frightened. So far, many monks in Kunlun realm always think that this world is a prison, and they will never be able to see the outside scenery in this life. But now it seems that this may be a disguised form of protection. Besides, do you know how to open it? Yi Junlin said contemptuously. The father and son shook their heads again, feeling their cheeks burning and feeling ashamed. Yes, he doesn't even know how to open the stargate, and he still fantasizes about expanding his territory to other countries. It's almost laughable. Okay, keep working hard. It is estimated that as long as this stargate is here, the good days of this great week are still to come. Yi Junlin turned around and left the ancestral mausoleum. I originally wanted to find out, but now that my curiosity is satisfied, I am naturally too lazy to wait any longer. Hey, we can only take strict precautions. Emperor Zhou looked bitter, realizing that the future of Dazhou would be very bumpy. Fortunately, he is currently in the tribulation realm. With the blessing of the huge national luck, even if the ghost army attacks again, he will definitely be able to defeat it. After all, the current Zhou dynasty is at the peak of its national power as never before. Emperor Zhou is still very confident about this. Master, if you really follow what you said, those dark creatures in the abyss really deserve to die. They are actually willing to betray the Kunlun world and become the pawns of alien races outside the territory. Li Wuji said behind him, his eyes filled with awe-inspiring murderous intent. Yi Junlin's eyes flickered. What interests me most now is what happened in Kunlun realm. I'm afraid the answer must be found in the immortal realm. After all, only those who ascend to the fairy world are qualified to travel across the universe. From this point of view, it is definitely related to the big boss of the fairy world. Fairy world, Li Wuji was in awe. It was a place that countless monks dreamed of. It is said that the spiritual energy in the fairy world is so rich that it is beyond imagination. Even if you throw the smelly stones from the latrine into it, you will be able to open up your spiritual wisdom and embark on the path of spiritual practice over time. The fairy world is also about the weak and the strong, and it will only be more cruel than the lower world. Hong Chenyi's eyes flashed and she sneered secretly. When he overcame the tribulation and became an immortal, he did not choose to ascend to the immortal realm immediately. Instead, he continued to stay in the central realm and hone his body because he heard that the immortal realm was very hierarchical and would even lead to loss of freedom. Who can survive a calamity and become an immortal these days, who is not an extremely talented monster? To control the wind and rain in the Kunlun world and enjoy the worship of countless monks. As a result, after finally ascending to the fairy world, they can only climb up from the bottom. How many people can tolerate this sense of gap? There is a saying that it is better to be a chicken head than a phoenix tail. If you have a background in the fairy world, it's okay, and there will be seniors to guide you, but if you don't, the situation will be even more difficult. And Hong Chenyi started from scratch and became a true immortal level boss purely by working hard on his own. Because she has provoked too many hostile forces in the central territory, if Hong Chenyi ascends to the immortal realm, she may be hunted to death by the people above. If you stay in the middle region, you can at least save your life. After all, the immortals above the immortal world cannot come down casually, so the true immortals have the ceiling of combat power in the lower world. It's a pity that the cultivation environment in the lower realm is so poor that it is difficult to support a true immortal's breakthrough in cultivation. It can only be said that there are advantages and disadvantages. It is for this reason that most of the monks who have successfully overcome the calamity and become immortals will choose to stay in the lower realm, unless their lifespan is running out and they are forced to ascend to the immortal realm. Then, everyone drove Kunpeng and left Dazhou. Facing the bright sunshine, Yi Junlin put his hands behind his head and relaxed on the recliner, thinking about all the things he encountered in Dazhou, and the thoughts in his mind were spinning. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that the abyss creatures suddenly launched a war against the outside world, which was promoted by someone behind the scenes. Their purpose was to occupy the Stargate, cooperate internally and externally, and allow foreign races from outside the territory to invade the eastern region. In the other four major domains, sooner or later we will also face this situation. A crisis targeting the Kunlun world is coming quietly. To this, Yi Junlin felt nothing in his heart. Because he is a person who has traveled through time and has a cheating system. If something threatens him, his relatives and friends, he can destroy it with just a few clicks. The principle that Yi Junlin adheres to is that when you should lie down, and when you should show off, you should show off. Don't have an unnecessary sense of urgency and don't put pressure on yourself. In life, you have to do whatever you want. By the way, I almost forgot about this. Yi Junlin thought of something and took out a bag of feed from the system backpack. After opening it, a rich milky aroma filled the air. Yes, this is the best pet animal feed. It smells so good. Bai Xiaoxi's nose twitched slightly. When she saw the feed bag in Yi Junlin's hand, her eyes were bright and she hurriedly ran over. Master, can Shushu have a taste? Seeing Bai Xiaoxi's drooling look, Yi Junlin couldn't help but smile. This is for the pet beasts. Pet beast. Bai Xiaoxi tilted her head, but rats are beasts. Hear the words. Staring at the furry rat head in front of him, Yi Junlin burst into laughter. I almost forgot that his apprentice was actually a white mouse. He originally took it in with the intention of keeping it as a pet, which completely fit the category of pet animal. Okay, this bag is for you to eat as a snack. Yi Junlin said. Okay, thank you, master. Bai Xiaoxi took the feed with both hands, raised it above her head like a child, and shouted happily. Hong Chenny, who was sitting cross-legged in the distance, said with disdain in his heart, this stupid mouse doesn't practice all day long. He just thinks about eating, and he has a bad behavior like that surnamed Yi. Hong Chenny could tell that Bai Xiaoxi seemed to have a very strong physique, but since she joined the master's sect, she had been doing nothing serious and was willing to become Yi Junlin's #1 follower. So far, we are still at the early stage of becoming a god. In his opinion, this waste of talent is a waste of life. Bai Xiaoxi stretched out her hand and grabbed a large handful of feed. Each feed was like a jujube and exuded a white luster. Then, he started to throw it into his mouth and began to eat it, his eyes narrowed in enjoyment. Delicious. Bai Xiaoxi ate with gusto. The more she ate, the more addicted she became and couldn't stop. Soon, its body revealed a bright luster, and every pore on its body spurted out pure essence. The next second, the energy in his body suddenly erupted, and Bai Xiaoxi's cultivation level soared rapidly. The middle stage, late stage, peak, and perfection of becoming a god. Breakthrough. Fusion state. This is not over yet. As Bai Xiaoxi eats more, his cultivation level continues to rise. After eating the whole bag, its realm will directly break through the Mahayana. This, Hong Chenny was stunned with fright, and his inherent cognition was shattered by the impact of this scene. He suddenly found that he could not understand the world at all. It's simply outrageous. Chapter 67, C67 Love from Senior Brother Hong. The snacks given by Master are delicious. At this time, Bai Xiaoxi was still immersed in the delicious taste of the feed. It was not until she came back to her senses that she realized that her state had changed. It really is the kind that rises without even realizing it. Hey, why did Shushu break through? Bai Xiaoxi opened her eyes wide, her cute mouse face a little confused. Yi Junlin was very surprised. He didn't expect that a bag of top-quality pet animal feed would have such an exaggerated effect. From the early stage of becoming a god, it went directly to the early stage of Mahayana. What if I eat a few more bags? Wouldn't it be like becoming an immortal directly on the spot? Senior sister Bai, Yu, Li Wuji, who was originally studying knife skills, noticed this scene and was so frightened that he almost dropped the knife in his hand. It's that bag of snacks that's responsible. Hong Chenny's eyes gleamed as she stared at the bag in Bai Xiaoxi's hand, as if a turbulent wave was rising in her heart. I am really curious, what level of treasure trove does Yi Junlin have that he can always come up with such shocking good things? Hong Chenny's heart was about to move. If he hadn't considered that he couldn't beat him, he would have really wanted to take everything away from the opponent. Xiaoxi, do you still want to eat? Yi Junlin asked. Bai Xiaoxi's eyes were bright and she nodded her head like garlic. Okay, Shushu still wants to eat more. Yi Junlin had 4 more bags of pet animal feed in his hand. He wanted to see if Bai Xiaoxi could really continue to break through. Bai Xiaoxi was very happy when she saw 4 packs of snacks with sufficient portions. It quickly took it, opened one of the bags, sniffed it with its nose, and showed an expression of joy. Then, Bai Xiaoxi reached out and kept grabbing the feed, stuffed it into her mouth and started chewing it. Her cheeks were bulging, which was really cute. Yi Junlin paid close attention to Bai Xiaoxi and found that after eating the 3rd bag, his cultivation had only reached the advanced stage. Yi Junlin understood now, if you eat more continuously and repeatedly, the effect will be greatly reduced. The further you go, the harder it will be. In the end, you must pile up the amount. But Yi Junlin thinks it doesn't matter, it's just a kind of pet food for him anyway. Then, Yi Junlin took out 5 more bags of top-quality pet animal feed and shouted to the giant beast at his feet. Kun, you have been working hard recently, here are snacks for you. Aha! 5 bags of top-quality pet animal feed were suspended in the air, glowing brightly and flying towards Kunpeng's eyes. Kunpeng was very happy and opened his big mouth to suck it in. Logically speaking, such a small amount of food is not enough to fill its teeth, but the feed rewarded by this system is very special. It is essentially a release of energy, which can satisfy the appetite in equal proportions. After eating 5 bags of top-grade pet animal feed, Kunpeng's body bloomed with circles of dazzling blue luster. Perhaps because of the purest bloodline of the divine beast, its cultivation level has increased from the early stage of Mahayana to perfection. Kunpeng let out a cheerful cry, conveying joyful mental fluctuations to Yi Junlin, as happy as a child receiving a reward from his parents. Ah, this, Li Wuji's Taoist heart was almost unstable, and his eyes were so wide that they almost fell out. Damn it, just eat that little bit of food and your level will rise as if it were a joke. Master is indeed enigmatic. Li Wuji sighed and looked at the silver-haired young man with even more admiration. Hong Chenny was stunned at first, then showed indignation, and said secretly, is this way of improving cultivation fair to those who work hard? I want to strongly condemn it morally. The most important thing is that this must have it has side effects. Even if you give it to me, I won't eat it. Although Hong Chenny thought so in her heart, her eyes were still staring at the bag of feed in Bai Xiaoxi's hand. At this time, Bai Xiaoxi did not want to continue swallowing the dates, but started to put them into her mouth one by one, chewing and tasting them slowly, enjoying the deliciousness of the new snacks. Hong Chenny ducked behind the sycamore tree near the palace and secretly sent a message, Xiaoxi, come here. Bai Xiaoxi was stunned, looking towards the source of the sound, and saw Hong Chenny waving towards it. It's senior brother Hong calling Shushu. Bai Xiaoxi was very happy, because most of the time, senior brother Hong had a very indifferent attitude toward it. Even the few times it had the courage to approach it and strike up a conversation, it was met with a look of disgust. Drink back. This made Bai Xiaoxi feel a little disappointed. But now Hong Chenny took the initiative to call it, which made Bai Xiaoxi feel accepted. Bai Xiaoxi walked over with short legs and ran over happily. Senior brother Hong, do you have anything to do with Shushu? Hong Chenny stared at this silly rat face and sneered secretly, this silly mouse. He coughed a few times and said seriously, I want to say that what master gave you is poisonous. Ah, Bai Xiaoxi was stunned, then shook her head wildly, this is impossible, master will not harm Shushu. Moreover, Shushu's cultivation will increase after eating it. HMPH, everything has two sides. Even the pills swallowed by cultivators will have residual medicinal properties in the body. The residue needs to be refined afterwards, otherwise it will affect the foundation. Therefore, most monks who rely on pills to build up their foundations it will be very bad. Red Chiba crossed her arms, raised her chin slightly, and said in a tone of educating juniors, and the stuff you eat seems to be helpful in breaking through the realm, but in fact it is counterproductive and maybe a lot of it will accumulate in the body. Toxin, if you continue to eat it, it is equivalent to chronic suicide. Bai Xiaoxi was stunned by what she heard, and stopped chewing. After swallowing it with difficulty, she said weakly, but the reason why master gave it to Shushu means that there is no problem with snacks. Senior brother Hong, did you misunderstand? Besides, Shushu didn't feel any discomfort in his body. Hearing this, Hong Chenny frowned, stretched out his hand and placed it on Bai Xiaoxi's head, closing his eyes to sense it. Seeing that Bai Xiaoxi's meridians were intact, his foundation was extremely solid, and there were even streams of pure innate essence constantly flowing throughout his body. Hong Chenny was shocked. There are really no side effects, this is more effective than taking drugs. At this moment, the previous cognition was overturned, and Hong Chenny stared at the bag of feed in Bai Xiaoxi's hand, his eyes shining brightly, mixed with concealed greed. Being stared at with such eyes, Bai Xiaoxi felt uncomfortable all over, and said cautiously, Brother Hong, if there is nothing else, Shushu will leave first. Leave the snacks, Hong Chenny said with an imposing manner, looking directly into Bai Xiaoxi's eyes. Bai Xiaoxi looked at the snacks in his hand, reluctantly whispered, Brother Hong, Shushu hasn't eaten enough. Hurry up, I'm your brother, you have to listen to me. But this is what the master gave to Shushu. Seeing that this rat disobeyed his orders, out of the desire to improve his cultivation, Hong Chenny was directly timid, and stretched out his hand with a grim smile to take the bag of feed. Take it. Chapter 68. C68 The fairy farts smell so good. Bai Xiaoxi was stunned in place. When she saw the snacks being snatched away, tears welled up in her eyes. Hong Chenny weighed the bag of feed in his hand, and the smile on his lips became even wider. When he saw Bai Xiaoxi's aggrieved look, he scolded, Why are you crying? Hold it back. Also, you are not allowed to tell master about this. Do you understand? Hong Chenny's imposing manner frightened Bai Xiaoxi so much that she shrank her neck and said weakly, Okay. Why are you still here? Get out of my sight. Hong Chenny said impatiently. I get angry when I see this stupid mouse. Bai Xiaoxi held back her tears, turned around and ran away. Senior brother snatched Shushu's snacks. Shushu felt so bitter. Looking at the back of the fleeing figure, Hong Chenny smiled contemptuously. Little mouse, I will control you directly. Hong Chenny looked down at the feed in his hand, with a gleam in his eyes. Humph, next, it's time to break through the tribulation in one fell swoop. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Hong Chenny poured the whole bag of feed into his mouth without saying a word. Well, the milk flavor is very strong, fragrant and sweet, melts in the mouth, and it's delicious. After eating, Hong Chenny's brows twisted into knots, and a flash of doubt flashed in his eyes. What's going on? Why does my stomach feel bloated? What Hong Chenny didn't know was that this was feed specially for pets. If humans eat it, they will have a rejection reaction in their bodies, and there is no effect of increasing their cultivation at all. At this time, a group of refined energy was running wildly in Hong Chenny's lower abdomen. No, if this goes on, Hong Chenny's face changed drastically, and cold sweat overflowed from his forehead. If he lets this energy run rampant, his body will be damaged. We must take measures to solve it quickly. As his thoughts turned, Hong Chenny decisively took a horse stance and guided the energy in his lower abdomen. His originally fair face turned red like an apple, and beads of sweat as big as beans fell straight down, and his breathing became rapid. Puff! A loud fart sounded, and a strong energy flow was released. Now, in addition to the palace moved by Yi Junline, there are pavilions, courtyard bridges, sand and vegetation on Kunpeng's back. From a distance, it looks like a small resort island. The movement caused by this fart is like a bomb detonating, causing a lot of sand and dust to fly and the woods to rustle. Hong Chenny only felt that there was an invisible force bursting under his buttocks, supporting his body to rise from the ground and fly into the air. Ever since the snacks were taken away, Bai Xiaoxi has been unhappy. Yi Junline was just enjoying the sunbath in a reclining chair as usual. He noticed Bai Xiaoxi coming over in a low mood and asked in confusion, "Xiaoxi, what's wrong with you?" On weekdays, this rat is the most heartless and energetic all the time. Why is he so listless now? Bai Xiaoxi wanted to speak, but when she thought of the consequences, she had to swallow the words that were about to come out of her mouth. The rat was bitter, but the rat didn't say it. Bai Xiaoxi felt that if she told the master about this, the master would definitely punish senior brother Hong, and he would definitely hate it even more. Bai Xiaoxi came to the side silently, picked up the milk tea on the table and slurped it. When she was in a bad mood, drinking sweet things would heal herself. Yi Junline frowned and was about to ask, but he heard a loud bang, and the whole island was slightly shaken. What's going on? Yi Junline sat up from the reclining chair suddenly, his eyes wide open. At this moment, he saw a red-clothed figure flying into the sky, breaking away from Kunpeng's flight path. Yi Junline stretched out his hand, and his palm burst out with terrible suction, directly pulling the other party back from 1,000 meters away. Swish! Hong Chenny staggered to the ground, his delicate and flawless face was red as if bleeding, and he was so ashamed that he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. The leader of the demon cult actually farted just now. Moreover, it was a super big and loud fart. Enemy attack. Master, there is an enemy attack. Li Wuji rushed over in a hurry, holding a knife and shouting anxiously. Yi Junline, feeling the atmosphere a bit strange, Li Wuji froze in place, his face a little confused. Isn't it? Yi Junline coughed a few times, stared at Hong Chenny and said seriously, "Zhao Hong, tell me, what's going on?" In front of the silver-haired young man, Hong Chenny's previous strength disappeared, replaced by a kind of uneasiness, hesitating. Are you deaf? The master is asking you a question. Yi Junline's eyes were like lightning, and he scolded. Boom! A powerful momentum burst out, like the power of heaven. Disciple knows my mistake. I beg master to forgive me. Hong Chenny's psychological defense line collapsed, and he knelt on the ground subconsciously, shouting with his head down. He knew that the guy in front of him loved the stupid mouse the most. If the robbery was known, he would be skinned alive. Yi Junline touched his nose, a little depressed. It's just a fart, why be so scared? Could it be that I was too harsh on my disciples? Suddenly, cold sweat broke out on Hong Chenny's forehead, his facial muscles were twitching, and his body was shaking uncontrollably, as if he was trying hard to hold back something, but it was difficult. You're, Yi Junline raised his eyebrows. Puff! A loud fart sounded, and the huge airflow suddenly spread, blowing Yi Junline's silver-white long hair into a frenzy, his face full of shock. Hong Chenny was ejected again and was blown into the sky by a fart. Senior brother Hong, Li Wuji said in astonishment. Bai Xiaoxi sniffed, and his rat face showed surprise. Senior brother Hong's fart is so fragrant. That's right. The gas released by Hong Chenny not only has no odor, but is full of rich milk fragrance, which makes people feel good after smelling it. Yi Junline was confused. What on earth is going on? Why did a Mahayana cultivator suddenly fart? And this fart is strangely fragrant. Suddenly, Yi Junlin thought of something, turned his head to look at Bai Xiaoxi, and asked, "Did that guy steal your snacks?" Bai Xiaoxi's face was nervous, and he said carefully, "Yes, it was given to him by Shushu, and senior brother Hong said he wanted to try it too." Hee. Yi Junlin sneered. He guessed at once that it must be that Hong Chenny saw the effect of the top-grade pet animal feed and had evil intentions to snatch it directly from Bai Xiaoxi's hands. As a result, pet animal feed is only for animals, not for humans, which led to the current situation. He even snatched the things of his fellow junior sister. He is indeed evil in his bones. It seems that he needs to be trained well. Bai Xiaoxi asked weakly, "Master, should we help senior brother Hong?" "Ignore him, he deserves it. He will be fine after he farts." Yi Junlin snorted coldly. Leaning lazily on the recliner again, smelling the milky fragrance in the air, Yi Junlin's expression was a little intoxicated, and suddenly reacted, his face darkened. Fuck. What is this? He, the master, actually smelled his apprentice's fart. Yi Junlin shook his sleeves with a dark face, and the milky fragrance in the air was swept away, and then his face eased a lot. Li Wuji stood there, confused from beginning to end. Because what happened today was too bizarre, he was a little confused for a while. "Hey, let's go, let's practice sword." At this time, Hong Chenny clenched his teeth and was still digesting the energy in his stomach. From time to time, gas burst out from his buttocks, pushing him across the mountains and seas, chasing the direction where Kunpeng disappeared. "Fart your fart, then roll back and accept the punishment." In the distance, a cold voice fell in his ears. "Yes, master." Hong Chenny's face was bitter and he was very regretful. Fortunately, this scene was not seen by his former enemies, otherwise he would really have no face to live in this world. "Hey, look, what a beautiful fairy." In a remote village, the villagers looked up and looked at Hong Chenny passing by, shouting happily. "Huh, there is a strange sound." Someone pricked up his ears, heard the sound of puffing, and opened his eyes curiously. "Why do I feel that this sound is like farting?" A cowherd boy said in surprise. "Nonsense. How can such a beautiful fairy fart?" The old village chief held a cane in his hand and knocked the cowherd boy on the head and scolded him. Then, he looked at the gorgeous red figure in the sky and shouted excitedly, "This is the fairy sending down the fairy air. Blessing my Jiba village. Everyone, breathe in the fairy air. Breathe it quickly. Fairy air, so this is fairy air. No wonder I smell it so good. Hurry up, breathe in the fairy air." The villagers of Jiba village were boiling with excitement, scrambling to chase the direction of Hong Chenny, sniffing hard with their noses, their faces filled with excitement, as if the more they inhaled, the greater the benefits. This incident will become a legend in this village in the future. It is said that on a sunny morning, a beautiful fairy in red happened to pass by Jiba village. Seeing the simplicity and kindness of the local villagers, she deliberately sent down auspicious fairy spirits. The villagers at that time benefited from it and became full of energy and walked briskly. Warm tips. If you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 69. C69A fake has appeared. 3 months later. The sun was shining brightly and the clouds were rolling in. A luxurious treasure ship flew towards a certain place on the air current. The ship was like a large resort hotel, with many monks from all over the world living in it. Some of them were drinking and talking, some were discussing gossip, some were showing off their backgrounds to each other, and some were eating, drinking and having fun. I really want to rush to Wuzhou as soon as possible. It is said that the Medicine King Valley there is about to open. I don't want to miss this rare opportunity. Hey, the competition will definitely be fierce by then. Look at our entire ship, all of which are going to Wuzhou. That's right, I heard that in the sky-shaped private room, all the gods are sitting there. We, the little shrimps who are building foundations, are only worthy of standing outside and blowing the air. What the heck, it's said that there are more than a dozen heavenly kings from the immortal Taoist tradition in the Tao-shaped private rooms further up. Hiss, Tianjin, that's a big boss in the fusion realm. The reputation of Yaowang Valley has been full of fantasy in the eastern region since ancient times. It is a supreme treasure land full of opportunities. Legend has it that the earliest owner of Yaowang Valley was called Yaozhen. His medical skills are extremely superb, and he was highly praised by monks all over the world in ancient times. Various famous medicines are planted in Yaowang Valley, and there is also a super large spirit gathering array inside, which directly absorbs most of Wuzhou's spiritual energy to cultivate it. Just throwing out an ordinary medicinal plant can cause a bloody storm in the outside world. Logically speaking, this kind of place will definitely be coveted by all forces, but Yaowang Valley is able to stand alone, not only because Yaozhen can cure diseases and save people, and make many good friends, but most importantly, his strength is also terrifying and he can cultivate for the unfathomable. Later, Yaozhen realized Taoism through medicine, overcame tribulations and became an immortal. He used his great supernatural powers to transform Yaowang Valley and set up various magical formations. After completing the work, he soared away gracefully, leaving endless legends to the world. From then on, the Medicine King Valley opens every 100,000 years, and the opening time is limited, and the number of people who can enter is also limited. And no matter who it is, as long as they wreak havoc on the environment in Yaowang Valley, they will be wiped out by the power left by Yaozhen. Yaozhen did this, on the one hand, to bless the common people and give future generations the opportunity to change their destiny, and on the other hand, to maintain the normal operation of Yaowang Valley and prevent all the precious medicines inside from being wasted. And just in these few days, it happens to be the time when Yaowang Valley opens again. For this reason, countless monks rushed to Wuzhou after hearing the news, eagerly waiting for the opening of Medicine King Valley. For ordinary monks, this is definitely a good opportunity for them to make a comeback. As for those high-profile bosses, they naturally want to further their cultivation. On the treasure ship, there was a lot of noise. At this moment, an old and cold voice suddenly came, with an unquestionable domineering tone. "People in front of you, stop for me." The treasure ship, which was originally moving at high speed, suddenly came to a sudden stop, causing the thousands of monks inside the ship to stagger, their faces so gloomy that they were about to drip. Who was his grandma, so crazy? A strong man in animal skin roared, and a burst of nascent soul's cultivation power erupted from his body. "What's going on? Why do you stop when you say stop?" A young man wearing a robe and a face like a jade scolded, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Clay figurines all have a certain amount of fire, not to mention they are monks who can control the wind and rain. Now that the treasure ship was suddenly blocked, many people present were dissatisfied and wanted to find an outlet. "Fellow Taoists, please take out all the valuables in your hands. Don't force me to do it myself." In front, the old voice continued to sound. "What? It's actually a robbery." An uproar suddenly broke out in the treasure ship. Who was so bold, dare to blatantly intercept someone halfway? HMPH, our ship is under the control of the Heavenly Lord, even a blind dog dares to cause trouble. Whoever is in charge, just hit him to death. Angry shouts resounded everywhere. Whether it was a sky-shaped or a road-shaped box, they all released terrifying murderous intent. Rumble. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and there was a hint of lightning and thunder. There's a big trend that's about to break out. Captain, why don't you activate the formation and directly kill the bandits in front? Now the guests have great opinions on us. One of his subordinates hurried over and complained. No, you must not. The captain muttered with big beads of sweat on his forehead. If we really do this, all of us will be finished. His subordinates were shocked. You must know that this treasure ship is made of spiritual weapons, and the formations contained in it are arranged by the formation masters. When it explodes with all its strength, even the heavenly king in the physical realm will be hated. It is definitely an excellent weapon that can protect guests. What's more, there are monks from all over the world on the boat, all of whom have certain backgrounds. Who has such great means and dares to kill them all? May I ask your surname? The host walked to the bow of the ship and shouted tentatively, as if he wanted to verify his conjecture. In the distance, there were clouds and mist, and an old man wearing a black robe embroidered with gold, with long white hair flying around, stepped on a crane, put his hands behind his back, his eyes were like lightning, and said calmly, "Zon Tianzong, Yi Junlin." Beside him, there were 3 figures standing. There is a tall young woman wearing a fiery red dress with skin as fair as jade. She has her arms folded, her breasts are quite spectacular, and her posture is high. There was a burly man with a tall head and a bamboo hat on his head. He held the hilt of the knife at his waist with his right hand. His eyes were fierce and his face was full of flesh. He looked like he was going to draw his knife and chop people if he disagreed with someone. There was also a short figure like a dwarf. Although he was a man, he was wearing a pink skirt, which made him look out of place. He wore a white veil and looked down on his face. These figures were very similar to the 4-man group in the rumors. Especially the white-haired old man. When he opened his mouth to reveal his identity, he frightened the host and confirmed his guess in his mind. It's really him, white-haired killer god Yi Junlin. As soon as these words came out, The originally angry guests shuddered as if they were drenched in ice water. They were shaking all over and looking forward with fear in their eyes. As for the so-called shaped and Dao-shaped boxes on the treasure ship, the murderous intent released was instantly restrained and dissipated, as if nothing had happened. Everyone trembled and regretted what they had just said. That was the white-haired killer whose reputation resounded throughout the eastern region. The big boss who had the blood of millions of cultivators on his hands and trampled on the face of Yuha sect. Even at the Shui family banquet a while ago, the Juyang immortal who had broken through the tribulation went to cause trouble, but was killed on the spot by the other party. It was at that time that many people knew that Yi Junlin of Xuantian sect was not a venerable but a genuine immortal. Now, this guy actually robbed people in broad daylight. By the way, is it really him? I always feel that he wouldn't do such a thing, he must be a fake, right? Are you blind? Didn't you see the people standing next to him? It's exactly the same as the rumors. That's right, the woman is the red fairy, the man is the blade demon Li Wuji, and the shortest one is the personal boy of the white-haired god of death. With this lineup, you still think it's fake? I'm really impressed by your IQ. If you want to die, don't drag us with you. Chapter 70. C70 The fox is using the tiger's power to bully others. Suddenly, a middle-aged man in the crowd hesitated for a while and said, but there are also rumors that that person's mount is the ancient mythical beast Kunpeng. Damn, do you believe this? Another young man sneered. That kind of mythical beast disappeared from the Kunlun world a long time ago, how could it appear to serve as a mount for him? Yes, it must have been blown up by someone who has done something bad. No matter how powerful Yi Junlin is, there is no way he can use Kunpeng as a mount. I advise those who think it is a fake to not implicate everyone before they die. The old white-haired devil is very cruel. Hey, if I had known I would have done my fortune-telling before I left. Everyone was dejected, as if the eggplant had been beaten by frost. Yi Junlin has a reputation for being evil, and because he often spreads rumors, his image has been demonized in various ways. So when encountering this kind of thing, even if the monks on the ship had doubts, due to the intimidation and the influence of their companions, they had no choice but to swallow their anger and give up resistance. After all, if you make a mistake, wouldn't your life be lost here? Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of what happens. It's better to spend money to eliminate disaster. Saw this scene, the white-haired old man showed a meaningful smile on his lips, coughed a few times and pretended to be serious. Li Wuji. Master, my disciple is here. The man in the hat said respectfully. Why don't you quickly accept the kindness of fellow Taoists? Yes. The man in the hat turned around with a ferocious smile on his face, pulled out his long knife and rushed to the treasure ship. Like a vicious bandit, he yelled, if you are wise, hand over all your valuables. Don't force you, Mr. Li, to kill people. The monks on the deck dared not speak out in anger, so they all had to take out their storage rings. The man in the hat was holding a knife, walking with a swagger, and his eyes were so fierce that no one along the way dared to look at him. It was rumored that the sword demon Li Wuji chased and slashed the young master of the Shui family at the Shui family banquet. It was said that he was extremely bold and had no rules. Now that they saw the arrogant man in a hat, everyone was even more convinced that this was true, and they were deeply afraid of offending him and being hacked to death. Li Wuji collected their storage rings, then went to each box and kicked the doors one by one, cursing and saying, you guys are riding horses, are all the people dead inside? Get them all out, Master Li. Soon, a bunch of transformed gods walked out of the sky-shaped box, and more than a dozen of them came out of the Dao-shaped box. They looked ugly and obediently took out their valuable belongings. The man in the bamboo hat accepted it with ease, and then came to the most luxurious cabin of the treasure ship. He raised his foot and was about to kick it. When the captain saw this, he rushed over and said with an apologetic smile, Master Li, you must not do it. There are 2 servants inside. The guests from Guangzhou have a lot of background, you see. The man in the bamboo hat said with a fierce expression, no matter how good you are, you have to sell my master's face. If you are sensible, just get out of here, otherwise, you will all die when my master takes action. Hearing this, the captain turned pale with fright. At this time, the door suddenly opened. Inside, there was a middle-aged man wearing black and white clothing, with a bun and a goatee. He stood with his hands behind his back with a gloomy expression. He exuded the aura of cultivation in the Mahayana realm. Sitting next to her was a woman in yellow with creamy skin and a graceful figure. At this time, her almond-shaped eyes were wide and her pretty face was full of anger. The man in the hat froze on the spot. There is actually a genuine venerable person here. After his brain went blank for a short time, the man in the hat quickly returned to his original state, raised the long knife in his hand and pointed it at the middle-aged man, and said arrogantly, "You really want to do something, don't you? Believe it or not, my master will kill you." Bang! The woman in yellow had the temper of a young lady. She stood up and smashed the table made of thousand-year-old immortal wood into pieces, glaring angrily, with the intention of taking action. Behind her, there were faint shadows of stars, trying to illuminate the world, and a terrifying pressure swept through the entire room. At a young age, he has already cultivated to the state of integration, and he seems to have a special physique, with a bright future. The man in the hat shuddered and almost ran away, but thanks to his skillful acting skills, he stabilized his mind and pretended to be calm and sneered, "Damn girl, are you trying to play tricks on your master Lee? Who do you think is going to kill this girl?" The woman in yellow was angry, her fist filled with bright stars, and she was about to explode towards the man in the hat. The man in the bamboo hat felt a chill on his back, secretly thinking that he was really going to fall into trouble this time. At the critical moment, a big hand grabbed the wrist of the woman in yellow. The middle-aged man in black and white clothes said in a deep voice, "Miss, don't be impulsive. Leave this matter to me." Uncle Fan, and Miaoyi was very reluctant. Fan Desheng shook his head, raised his hands to the man in the bamboo hat and said, "Fellow Taoist, we are the Taoist sect from Guangzhou. Could you please make it easier this time? We will definitely visit your Xuantian sect someday." Taoism. The eyelids of the man in the bamboo hat trembled. This was an existence that could be ranked among the top 10 immortal sects in the eastern region. It is said that there were several immortals in ancient times. Oh my god, I really hit the wall now. Wait, what am I afraid of? I am now the apprentice of the sword demon Li Wuji and the white-haired murderer Yi Junlin. When it comes to Taoism, is it awesome? Suppressing the shock in his heart, the man in the hat sneered, "We'll talk about the future later. Now hand over all the valuables." Fan Desheng narrowed his eyes and stared at the man in the hat. He didn't expect that he could not stop the guy in front of him even if he mentioned the Taoist sect's name. As expected, the sword demon Li Wuji acted without any scruples. Perhaps his master Yi Junlin is behind this. As soon as his thoughts changed, Fan Zheng suddenly understood again. After all, he dared to offend the Yuha sect, let alone a Taoist sect. The man in the hat was stared at so much that his back felt cold and his hair stood on end, but out of professionalism, he still had a sinister smile on his face and fierce eyes. In fact, he regretted in his heart why he didn't finish the order just now. If the other party breaks the jar, his life will be decided here. Damn it, I should have known it would have been too deep to get into the drama. At this moment, Fander seemed to have made up his mind, and took out the storage ring with some pain, and said with a smile, "This is the storage ring that I carry with you. There are 5 million top-grade spiritual crystals in it, and I asked my Taoist friends to accept a few spiritual weapons that are barely useful and tell Yi Shushan that they are my Taoist sect's thoughts." A gleaming storage ring floated away and fell into the hands of the man in the hat. The man in the hat was breathing a little quickly and was extremely ecstatic. "Get rich. Make a fortune now, Uncle Fan. What are you?" And Miaoyi stomped her feet angrily, feeling that this behavior was very embarrassing. Fan Desheng took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist, are you still satisfied?" The man in the hat pretended to be calm and accepted the storage ring, and coldly snorted, "You know what's going on, I will report the truth to Master when I get back." After saying that, he held the knife on his shoulder and walked out of the door swaggeringly. When going down the stairs, the man in the hat's legs were shaking a little, his face was red with excitement, and he said to himself, hey, just run away after showing off, how exciting. Did you see that? Even the Taoist sect's venerable people paid the money obediently. Hey, let me just say it's true. I was still a little bit in disbelief just now. Fortunately, it didn't lead to a big disaster. I can't help it. If you do something like this, consider yourself unlucky. Everyone whispered and felt very happy. With joy in his heart, the man in the bamboo hat flew out of the treasure ship and came to the white-haired old man. He pretended to hold up his hands and said, "Master, my disciple has accepted all the good intentions of fellow Taoists." The white-haired old man looked calm and confident. He wore a solemn black robe with a hunting sound. His eyes opened and closed with a cold light, and he slowly said, "Well, very good, it seems that someone is still willing to sell me Yi Junlin. Face. Let's go." Yes. Swish swish swish. The group of people rode the crane away and disappeared into the billowing clouds. On the treasure ship, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but still had lingering fears about what had just happened. The captain even cried with joy, feeling that he would survive the disaster. In the private room on the top floor, and Miaoyi put her hands on her hips, her pretty face was very dissatisfied, and asked, "Uncle Fan, you let me down so much." Fan Desheng twitched the corner of his mouth and said depressedly, "Miss, I am also trying to protect your safety. If I don't give you face, Yi Junlin will definitely kill us all with his cruel and murderous temperament. And you have also seen that his apprentice does not take our Taoist sect seriously at all. If anything happens to you, I will be the sinner of the Taoist sect." And Miaoyi was still angry and said angrily, "It's true that the upper beam is not straight and the lower beam is crooked. This Yi Junlin has gone too far. Why can he be lawless? Do whatever he wants in the eastern region." Chapter 71. C71 Do Something Big. Fan Desheng shook his head and said helplessly, "Who made his cultivation unfathomable? Not long ago, he killed a virtual immortal from the Yuha sect. You know, that person's Taoist name was Zhu Yong, and he was the master of the holy son of the Yuha sect. My dear, oh, pity that he came all the way, thinking that he could kill Yi Junlin alone, but who thought that guy deliberately concealed his cultivation, and Zhu Yong was killed in the end. Furthermore, it is said that Yi Junlin was very protective of his shortcomings. After accepting the sword demon Li Wuji as his disciple, he forced the ancestor of the Shui family to personally kill the Shui family father and son. Do you think I cannot be afraid of such a ruthless person? Like him, I think it's normal for a moody lunatic to commit robbery on a whim." This great elder from the Taoist sect was usually highly respected in the sect and had a very high status, but when he mentioned Yi Junlin's deeds, his words were filled with deep fear. And Miaoyi was so angry that her chest kept rising and falling, pacing back and forth in the room, gritting her teeth and saying, "Damn it, how can there be such a wicked person in the world?" Fan Desheng looked at the angry woman in yellow and seemed to have thought of something. He said earnestly, "Miss, practice hard. With your talent, you will be able to break through the tribulation sooner or later, and even become an immortal. Don't forget, you are a star immortal. A person with a human body, this physique is not much worse than the sun immortal body of the saint son of the Yuha sect." Hearing this, and Miaoyi's eyes were full of determination, "Don't worry, Uncle Fan, I will work hard to practice. When I am strong enough, I will definitely eliminate demons and defend the Tao. Get rid of this scum with my own hands." Fan Desheng smiled bitterly. Although the sect master's daughter was very motivated, her ideas were a little childish, she was too impulsive in her actions, and she was easily emotional. "Hey, there is no other way, just take your time. I hope you can make some progress during this trip to Yaowang Valley." On a mountaintop in the distance, several figures were sitting on the ground, dividing up the spoils. "Hey, Yi Junlin's name is really useful. These days, whenever we rob, we all succeed without exception." The dwarf-like short figure took off the curtain on the top of his head, revealing a sinister face. He smiled obscenely. "Damn, I scared the labor and management half to death just now, and almost exposed the secret." Fortunately, the Taoist sect leader was forced to give in because of Yi Junlin's reputation. The man in the hat said excitedly, "That's your venerable man. A boss who is usually aloof, but I didn't expect that he has to be respectful to me. Haha, this feeling is so good. TCH, why don't you take a pee and take a look at yourself? Are they being respectful to you? They are showing off to the sword demon Li Wuji. And who are you? Just a small character." The person who spoke was a man with a hot figure. The spicy woman in red rolled her beautiful eyes and scoffed. The man in the hat glared angrily, "Who are you talking about when you ride on a horse? Aren't you also a bitch that is ridden by thousands of people? Have you forgotten how long you have been working in Fengchun Tower? Do you really think you are a red fairy? Bah! I'm going to tear your mouth apart." The woman in red stood up angrily, her chest trembling wildly. "Come on, let me chop you to death, you pheasant," the man in the hat said angrily, holding a long knife. "Quiet." At this moment, the white-haired old man shouted with a cold look in his eyes. His body exuded a powerful aura of divine transformation, which directly suppressed several people present. Compared with these parallel imports, there is no doubt about the strength of the white-haired old man. Moreover, he also formed the team by himself. The most important thing is that the white-haired old man has mastered the method of hiding his cultivation level, which makes every time he takes action, he can give the target the illusion that his cultivation level is unfathomable. The white-haired old man sneered. "Haha, you all think you have become more capable. You don't even know how much you weigh. Let me tell you, you are not irreplaceable. At worst, I will kill you too and find a suitable person to replace you. If you are wise, please be smart." For this audacious planner, the man in the hat and the others were all in awe and kept silent. The white-haired old man restrained his aura and raised the corners of his mouth. As the saying goes, the brave will be starved to death and the timid will be starved to death. Cultivation not only relies on talent and hard work, but also requires the support of massive cultivation resources. As a casual cultivator, he has struggled all the way, but he is still stuck in the perfection of divine transformation for many years. If he wants to make a breakthrough, he must do something. And this time Yaowang Valley is a good opportunity. While Yaowang Valley is open, pretending to be Yi Junline is the best time to cut leaks. Because during this period, the flow of people coming and going is the largest, and it is also the time when the benefits are highest. You just need to sit back and enjoy it. Fortunately, Yi Junline has a strong reputation and a complete team, so the target audience simply gave up resistance and obediently paid for peace. Now that he has made a lot of money, the white-haired old man sighed inwardly, how clever his strategy is. As for doing this, it would have a negative impact on Yi Junline's disciples, and the white-haired old man didn't feel the slightest bit guilty about this. After all, this kind of roadblocking and robbery is just a drop in the bucket compared to the killing of an army of millions of monks, right? After the last vote, everyone will disband. The white-haired old man's eyes flashed and he sneered, but before that, we have to play something bigger. Rumble. Suddenly, the clouds on the horizon in the distance were rolling wildly, and a huge body of tens of thousands of meters passed by, blowing up a mighty air current. That terrifying coercion can cause heart palpitations even from a distance. Then, what is that? The white-haired old man's scalp was numb, his whole body felt like falling into an ice cellar, and his eyes showed the ultimate shock. It's so scary, what kind of monster is that? The man in the bamboo hat swallowed his saliva and his face turned pale. Ah! The woman in red trembled and was almost incontinent. When the huge figure disappeared, these people breathed a sigh of relief, and their backs were already wet with cold sweat. At the same time, on Kunpeng, there is a huge magic shield, with rockery and flowing water, pavilions and towers, and the scenery is beautiful and spectacular, just like a holiday island. Yi Junline sat on the Taishi chair, reached out and picked up the chess piece, looking thoughtful, and then put it on the chessboard. Master, this is the tornado ice cream you want. Chocolate flavor. Bai Shaoxi ran over excitedly with the freshly made product in her hand. Well, put it there. Okay. At this time, Hong Chenny picked up the chess piece and put it down calmly, with a faint arc at the corner of his mouth, feeling that he was sure to win. For some reason, seeing the opponent being defeated step by step, his desire to win reached its peak at this moment. Yi Junline did not react, but picked up the military chess, and naturally crossed the boundary river and the obstacles of multiple targets, and landed on the opponent's chess. Eat you. You lose this game again. Hong Chenny was stunned, clenched his fists tightly, and gritted his teeth and said, Master, military chess can't do this. I'm sorry, I'm a special forces soldier. Yi Junline said with a serious face. Hong Chenny. God, special forces soldier. Another new word you created. Hong Chenny was so angry that his heart was twitching. He shouldn't have such unrealistic expectations, and actually fantasized about defeating the opponent openly. Even the rules of the game were changed arbitrarily by this guy, and his superb chess skills were not useful at all. Hey, Yi Mo only wants to lose. Yi Junline threw away the chess piece, sighed to the sky, and his tone was lonely and unmatched. Hong Chenny's contempt was even worse, and he secretly said in his heart, Bah! Shameless guy. Yi Junline shrugged, picked up the finished ice cream made by Bai Shaoxi, lowered his head and looked at it. His expression was like the old man in the subway in his previous life looking at his phone. Hiss, this shape is like a pile of feces. It's black. My good disciple, you have worked hard, and this is for you as a reward. Shaoxi, make me a cup of vanilla flavor, and use a ball instead of the shape. Okay. Hong Chenny looked at this thing that looked like a defense, and his expression was like constipation. Is this for people to eat? In the end, Hong Chenny suppressed his discomfort, scooped a spoonful with a spoon, and slowly put it into his mouth. In an instant, Hong Chenny's eyes lit up, and he was not so resistant. Ice cold, melt in the mouth, is this ice cream? It's delicious. Master, we have arrived in Wuzhou. It is said that Medicine King Valley will be opened in a few days. Li Wuji ran over excitedly, and then his eyes shifted to Hong Chenny who was eating black ice cream on the side, with a strange look on his face. Senior brother Hong looks like he is eating. At this time, Yi Junline raised his eyebrows. What is Medicine King Valley? Ding, the host has been detected to have entered Wuzhou, and the sign in location is refreshed. Please complete the sign in Medicine King Valley, and you will get great benefits. Closing square bracket. In my mind, the system prompt sounded. Chapter 72. C72 Dragon Gate Inn. They are all masters. Oh, Yi Junlin rubbed his chin. Since he's already here, he might as well go to Yaoang Valley. Anyway, there are benefits. Master, your vanilla ice cream. Bai Xiaoxi ran over with short legs. Yi Junlin took it, took a bite with a spoon, and praised with satisfaction. Well, you did a good job, there is progress. Hey, Bai Xiaoxi scratched his head, feeling very accomplished. By the way, Master has to give you a task. Yi Junlin took out a thick book with a pastry-making encyclopedia written on it. This is a bonus obtained by signing in every day, covering various pastry recipes. This book is definitely a trade secret, and it could create a pastry empire in the past life. Master hopes that you can learn more useful things, not only for me, but also for yourself. Yi Junlin said seriously. Bai Xiaoxi opened this thick book and was dazzled by the various illustrations of pastries inside. Her eyes were bright and her mouth was about to drool. When I think that it can also eat the food above, I feel so happy. Sure enough, Master is the best to shushu. Go to work. Bai Xiaoxi hugged the thick book and ran to the workbench with great enthusiasm, preparing for practical operations. Seeing this shameless behavior, Hong Chiba was stunned and felt that her knowledge was refreshed again. Obviously you want to eat it, but you still have to make excuses. The most outrageous thing is that this stupid mouse actually believed it. Looking at the petite figure busy at the workbench, Hong Chiba felt a rare feeling of pity. A powerful man in the Mahayana realm not only possesses a special physique, but also has 100,000 subordinates who can fight. With such conditions, even if he is placed in the middle region, he can separate himself from one side, establish himself as the king, and start the road to hegemony. In the end, he willingly became a cook. He was obviously doing the job of serving people, but he still felt very happy and contented. Just when Hong Chenny felt desolate about Bai Xiaoxi's fate, Yi Junlin, who was sitting opposite him, had already set up the chessboard at some point and said with a smile, "Good disciple, let's continue. If we lose again, there will be punishment." Looking at the smiling silver-haired young man, Hong Chiba clenched her fists in anger and wanted to hit him hard and beat him to pieces. "You bitch, if you want to torture me, just say so. Why do you need to play chess? What, you don't want to compete with me to learn chess skills?" Yi Junlin's smile gradually turned cold. "Master, you are joking." Hong Chenny felt furious in her heart and said with a smile, "It is my disciple's honor to play chess with Master." There was no way, even if he was feeling aggrieved, he could only keep it in his heart. At this time, Hong Chenny suddenly felt that compared to that silly mouse, it seemed that his situation was more pitiful. Li Wuji, who was practicing the Chaos Heavenly Sword Ju in the distance, glanced at the two figures playing chess who were getting along well under the willow tree, with a flash of envy in his eyes, and said with emotion, "Sure enough, the one that Master loves the most is senior brother Hong. Ah. Tianling City. Since the nearby Yaoang Valley will be opened in a few days, a large number of monks from all over the world have gathered here. Whether it is an inn or a tavern, they are basically full. Walking casually to the street, it is a common phenomenon to build a foundation every 5 steps and a golden elixir every 10 steps. Although there were occasional conflicts between monks during the period, they were quickly extinguished because there were too many big bosses hidden here, and they were afraid of accidentally bumping into someone and leaving their bodies lying on the streets. Dragon Inn. It was full of people and lively. 4 hooded figures stood in front of the store looking at the plaque. "Master, this is the largest inn within 100 miles. Li Wuji said respectfully. "We can stay here for a few days and wait until the Medicine King Valley is officially opened before entering." The tall figure at the head had thick silver-white hair hidden inside. Under the brim of the hat, there was a handsome face with eyes as bright as stars. Yi Junlin nodded. "Okay, this is it. Although you can stay on Kunpeng, it gets a bit boring after a long time. If you stay in this inn, you can also appreciate the local customs and find out interesting things that happened recently. Guests, please come in," the waiter said, extending his hand. Yi Junlin and the others walked in. Because they wore hoods to hide their appearance, the guests didn't pay much attention. The reason for doing this is mainly because they are afraid of affecting the order around them. After all, in the entire Eastern region cultivation world, Yi Junlin and the 4 of them are so recognizable that it is difficult not to attract attention when they are together. "Master, why do we have to be secretive?" Hong Chenny, who was following behind, hesitated for a long time before mustering up the courage to speak. In the view of the leader of the demon cult, their group has absolute strength, so why should they care about the eyes of the outside world? Anyone who dares to gossip will be killed directly. Hey, now that I am so famous, I will definitely have a lot of fanatic fans. If my identity is exposed, they will all rush to get my autograph. This will make me very distressed. Yi Junlin sighed. Hear the words. Hong Chenny seemed to be choked, and the muscles in the corners of her eyes were twitching. Along the way, he thought of countless reasons, but he never thought of this. Sure enough, I shouldn't try to figure out his intentions like a normal person. I was wrong. Big mistake. Hong Chenny took a deep breath, her expression full of self-blame, and she was rebuilding her psychology. Waiter, are there any recommended dishes here? Yi Junlin chose a seat on the second floor and sat down, tapping his fingers lightly on the table and asked. The waiter ran over quickly and said with a bright smile, Sir, you have asked the right person. I will recommend some of our signature dishes to you. I guarantee that the taste will be truly authentic. As he spoke, he opened the menu and introduced, look at this dish, it's called braised lion's head. The lion's head here is taken from a roaring lion in the nascent soul stage. Our chef chopped off its head. After being roasted repeatedly by goblin fire, the skin is crispy and delicious, and the meat is tender and plump. Quote. There is also this sweet and sour carp dish. This carp is not an ordinary thing. It contains a trace of real dragon blood in its body. It tastes so delicious. It's very fragrant. And this stir-fried beef, the ingredients are taken from the azure beef that has been cultivated as a god. After eating it, you will be extremely powerful and have an enhanced effect on qi and blood. While the waiter introduced these signature dishes, he secretly observed Yi Junlin's expression. Because the prices of these dishes are very expensive, although there are more people these days, few monks staying in the hotel can afford to eat them. They were all persuaded to leave after seeing the prices marked on the menu. But this time, it seems a little different. At this time, Yi Junlin was not daunted by the sky-high price of the menu. He was someone who had seen big scenes. After all, at the state banquet prepared by Da Zhou, every dish was priceless. Even the ordinary scrambled eggs with tomatoes were made from golden-winged dapeng eggs. As for the items introduced by the waiter, I can only say that they are a bit new, but not particularly exaggerated. What about this? Shu Shu thinks this is delicious. At this time, Bai Xiaoxi pointed to a dish called snowflake jade pork on the menu and said curiously. The waiter smiled and said, My guest, you are really discerning. The ingredients for this dish are taken from the polar ice rat. The polar ice rat comes from the cold extreme north and likes to live in the glacier. After our chef's professional after-processing, the meat will be very plump, and every cut of the meat will be as crystal clear as snowflakes, hence the name. It is recommended to set up a stove here to cook the meat. Quote. Bai Xiaoxi, who originally still had an appetite, was so frightened that she almost fell to the ground with a myocardial infarction after hearing this cruel description. Sir, do you want this dish? The waiter asked tentatively. No more Shu Shu. Bai Xiaoxi waved her hands repeatedly, her voice filled with tears. The waiter looked strange. Why did this little girl react so loudly? Wait, why do I seem to see a furry rat face? Chapter 73. C73 The reputation took a sharp turn for the worse. Ahem, except for the snowflakes and jade meat, I want everything you said before, one by one. Yi Junlin took out the storage ring and slapped it on the table with a generous slap. The waiter was startled. He was immersed in his spiritual consciousness. When he saw the mountains of high-grade spiritual crystals piled up in the space, his mouth felt dry and his heart beat like a drum. Good guy, this is a rich man. Here, guest, please wait for a moment, and I will notify the chef to cook it for you. The waiter trembled with fright, and then quickly left the scene. Yi Junlin shook his head. The amount of spiritual crystals he signed in and received during this period was enough for him to buy an ordinary dynasty. And what I spent just now was just a drizzle. Wow, rats are so cute, why do they eat rats? Bai Xiaoxi held her head in her hands, with tears in her eyes, feeling sad for what happened to her kind. Yi Junlin touched its head and felt a little funny. Boom. At this moment, a vast and majestic aura spread, impacting the entire Longmen Inn. Fortunately, the Longmen Inn was very strong, and was made of black iron, with only a slight vibration. What's going on? Yi Junlin looked at the source. The aura of nascent soul. Which fellow Taoist has achieved a breakthrough? An old golden elixir monk said with envy. Whoa, a huge fiery red figure flew out from upstairs and landed on the table with a thud. Several guests sitting around were startled and said in shock, fuck. Suddenly, dense spiritual consciousness gathered. Only then did everyone see clearly that this was a lobster monster that had become a spirit. I saw that it was 3 meters tall, its shell was as red as flames, its pair of large pliers were extremely powerful, its 2 eyeballs were moving back and forth, and it was observing the surrounding environment with a look of panic in its eyes. What surprises many people is that this lobster monster is at the early stage of nascent soul. It turns out that it was the one that made the breakthrough just now. Just as the lobster monster, which had just broken through the nascent soul, was about to gain momentum and escape from the Longmen Inn, a bright sword like a horse struck at it and slashed hard on it. Poof! The lobster monster screamed and fell limply on the table. His eyes were dim and his breath was gone. The owner of the knife light appeared. He was a middle-aged chef wearing a high hat, wearing an apron and carrying a kitchen knife with a cold light. He smiled apologetically and said, "Dear guests, I am really sorry. I was originally going to make spicy crayfish, but it turned out that this lobster monster saw its companions being killed one after another. When it was desperate, it actually broke through the shackles and broke through the yuanying. Then it struggled to escape from my knife. Fortunately, it was saved in time. If it causes any trouble to our guests, we will apologize for it." Quote. Then, the middle-aged cook dragged the corpse of the lobster monster away, smiling apologetically all the way, and his attitude was very sincere. However, his face was too fierce, and the strength he just showed made many monks who had complained suddenly become angry. Swallowed back his dissatisfaction. Cruel, too cruel, is the chef at this Longmen Inn so good? Since the store opened, no one dares to eat bawang meal, right? The monks at the table who were interrupted from eating looked at the rice bowl kicked over by the lobster monster and looked at each other. The leader reacted, slammed the table, and shouted angrily, "It's his grandma's, let me give my brothers a plate of stir-fried lobster to eat, and the ingredients will be the big lobster just now." The ingredients for nascent soul-level monsters must be very expensive, but these people can't stand it and just want to let out a bad breath. Okay, the waiter was very happy. He put the towel on his shoulders and shouted excitedly, "Give these guests a plate of fried lobster." Seeing that the storm subsided, Longmen Inn returned to normal. Yi Junlin looked back and said with a smile, "This kind of inn run by practitioners is quite interesting." Li Wuji crossed his arms and commented seasoned ly, "Well, in my disciple's humble opinion, that cook's knife skills are very good. He can draw the knife quickly and accurately. He practices strong and domineering knife skills, as he just said. The breath is a little unstable, probably caused by being too hasty." Quote. "He is a swordsman and a swordsman. Shish, listen, someone seems to be talking about us." Hong Chenyi's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's normal, I have a lot of fans." Yi Junlin pretended to be calm, but actually raised his ears and listened carefully. The inn was buzzing with discussions, and they were concentrating on one topic. "What a sin, I met that damn bastard Yi Junlin a while ago. All the spiritual crystals I have worked hard for most of my life were robbed by him. Damn, so am I. Not only the spiritual crystals, but also 6 7th grade treasures, 30 Zon level talismans, and 5 Earth grade elixirs, were all snatched away by him, a man who suffered 1,000 blows. Wow, it looks like everyone has been robbed. I thought I was the only one unlucky enough to be caught by that old dog. Hey, seeing all the fellow Taoists suffering from it, for some reason I suddenly feel more balanced." Fierce discussions filled the surrounding area. 80% of the victims in the entire Longmen Inn stood up and denounced Yi Junlin as a shameless and despicable person. It was like a large-scale venting of anger. Yi Junlin was yelling at Yi Junlin. It can be said that the crowd was furious and filled with righteous indignation. It seems that the Yi Junlin they talk about is a heinous thug who deserves to be punished by heaven and earth, crushed to pieces, sent to the 18th level of hell, and never reborn. Chi chi chi, Hong Chenyi lowered his head, his shoulders shaking, as if he was suppressing a smile. At this time, the leader of the demon sect was so happy that he heard the guests yelling and denouncing Yi Junlin crazily. He just felt that the retribution of heavenly law was unsatisfactory, and every pore in his body was stretching, and even the soul in his body was about to leave his body. "Ha ha ha, you heroes, what a great scolding. I cursed out everything that was in my heart. Yi Junlin, there were times when you were despised by thousands of people. See, this is what the people want." Hong Chenyi, who was also a victim, felt a sense of empathy from the bottom of her heart when she heard this group of people angrily scolding Yi Junlin. Pure reality substitute. So cool, so happy. Li Wuji's face was full of shock, he did not expect this situation at all. In his impression, his master does not seem like someone who would do such a thing. Immediately afterwards, Li Wuji's face was replaced by murderous intent. He firmly grasped the handle of the knife with his right hand and stood up to draw it out and start killing. Insult my master and die. At this time, a big hand pressed down on his shoulder, forcing Li Wuji back. Li Wuji's eyes flashed with astonishment. Master, you. Yi Junlin shook his head. Don't be impulsive. Listen to what they say. It's obvious that someone is pretending to be me and cheating. Being scolded for no reason would make anyone feel unhappy. It really lives up to that sentence. People are sitting at home, and pots come from heaven. Yi Junlin tried his best to calm down. His face looked a little ugly. From the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the eldest disciple next to him who was lowering his head, and said meaningfully, Xiao Hong, just laugh if you want to, don't hold your body back. Hearing this, Hong Chiba's back suddenly felt cold, and large beads of sweat overflowed from her forehead. Then, he quickly adjusted his state. When he raised his head again, his face was full of anger, and his eyes almost burst out with anger. He gritted his teeth in anger and said, Damn, these ants deserve to be damned. Master, as long as you give the order, disciple, I will take action immediately. No one will be left alive. Yi Junlin. Haha. Chapter 74. C74 Hong Chenny. Eating the melon and eating myself. Yi Junlin knew that this man had a sinister nature, and he must be so happy to see him being scolded that he almost showed his true colors. He joined in the excitement. And that sword demon Li Wuji. The dog is really not a human. He used the name of his master Yi Junlin to bully us and force us to obey him. That's right. Seeing his arrogance at that time, I wanted to spit on his face. Then I pointed at his nose and cursed. Bah, who do you think you are? Why didn't you get beaten to death at the Shui family banquet? HMPH, in my opinion, he is a mad dog raised by Yi Junlin, who was specially released to bite people. Suddenly, the victims around him shifted their spearheads to Li Wuji, and their words were all kind of cordial greetings, the kind that could be turned over to scold the family tree. At this time, Li Wuji, who was still angry about his master being criticized, became even more angry after hearing these words. Damn it, why do I have to be scolded too? I have a fake one too. And it seems that the guy is not bad. Yi Junlin coughed a few times. Little Li, it's okay, your master is with you. Li Wuji's face turned red, and he held it in his mouth for a long time before he uttered a sentence. Damn it, don't let me catch that guy, otherwise I will chop him to death. Although he is known as the sword demon and is notorious in many dojo, he has fought for it in an upright manner. As a result, there are thieves who use his identity to cheat and rob ill-gotten gains. This kind of shameless operation is the first time I have seen it. Hong Chenny's back teeth are almost broken, his eyebrows are twisted into knots, and his fists in his sleeves are clenched tightly. No, it's too funny. If this goes on, I will have internal injuries. From just now to now, Hong Chenny has been looking at it as a bystander. Whether Yi Junlin or Li Wuji is scolded, it doesn't make much difference in his heart. The only thing that made me feel uncomfortable was that I couldn't laugh out loud. Just then, a tall and strong man thought of something and waved his hand and said, Let's not talk about that mad dog Li Wuji, let's talk about Yi Junlin's eldest disciple. It is said that Fairy Hong is beautiful and has a cold and unparalleled temperament, which makes countless men admire her. But when I saw her in person, I found that there was a big gap between her and the rumors. Although her appearance is also very high, for some reason, she gives people a strong smell of the world, just like a girl from a brothel. Another man who was as short as Wu Delang agreed. I saw him stroking his chin, and said, Your Excellency is not false. Based on my many years of experience in the fireworks place, the Red Fairy is at most a medium to high quality product. I really don't know why the outside world exaggerates. It is true that hearing is false and seeing is believing. My fellow Taoist, your evaluation is already very objective. When I saw the Red Fairy, I almost drooled. It was really magnificent there. I really wanted to play with it. Another man smiled with a lewd face. Ha 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 ha. In an instant, everyone laughed, and the anger was diluted a lot, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. Many male monks didn't say anything, but they exchanged eyes with each other, and they all knew it. Hearing this, Hong Chenny's expression was stiff, and the smile in his heart disappeared, replaced by a raging anger. He was so angry that his whole body was shaking, his teeth were clenched, and his eyes were simply cannibalistic. Listening to all kinds of colored remarks outside, Li Wuji, who was sitting next to him, had a strange look on his face, and his eyes intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the flat chest of this senior brother. This small action directly touched Hong Chenny's sensitive nerves, which almost broke through the critical point of his anger. Junior brother Li, what are you looking at? Hong Chenny smiled, and his smile was terrible and chilling. Swish, Li Wuji's hair stood on end, and he felt like he was being stared at by a great terror, as if he was in front of a peerless demon. Hong, senior brother Hong, actually I was blown into the eyes by sand, please don't misunderstand me. Li Wuji rubbed his eyes quickly, pretending that he didn't see anything, but his poor acting skills and excuses made Hong Chenny feel that his IQ was humiliated. Just as Hong Chenny continued to interrogate, Yi Junlin pretended to cough dryly a few times, with a teasing tone, Zhao Hong, be generous, and what's more, they are discussing that fake, and it's a woman, are you a woman? Why are you so anxious as a man? Hong Chenny looked like he had eaten a fly, his expression was extremely ugly, and his eyes twitched wildly. Even if he had thousands of words to refute, it couldn't stand the ironclad facts. To be honest, this group of people verbally offended the prostitute, what does it have to do with him as a man? It's not even close. Yi Junlin poked Hong Chenny with his elbow, and smiled playfully, hey, have you completely accepted the title of Red Fairy, otherwise why are you reacting so strongly? Hong Chenny's face froze, and he shook his head quickly, saying in a decisive tone, I didn't. Really? Yi Junlin asked again. I really didn't. Hong Chenny was so anxious that she almost jumped up, and tried her best to deny it. Haha, master believes it. Yi Junlin waved his hand. Hong Chenny was furious, but he could only bear it. The strange thing was that the cultivators present talked about Yi Junlin, Li Wuji, and Hong Chenny, but only missed the fool Bai Xiaoxi. It seemed that in their eyes, Bai Xiaoxi was not worth mentioning at all, and was the one with the weakest presence. Dear guests, this is the dish you ordered. The waiter smiled flatteringly. Then, plates of delicious specialties were served, with a hot aroma that made people salivate. Bai Xiaoxi had no appetite at first, but after seeing this scene, her nose moved and her eyes sparkled, wow, it smells so good. It picked up the ivory chopsticks and quickly picked up the food and put it into its mouth, eating with great joy. Looking at this nervous rat, Yi Junlin couldn't help laughing, and his inner depression was reduced a lot. He picked up the chopsticks and greeted, eat, talk about it later if there is anything. Yes, the other two nodded. Fortunately, this storm of condemnation did not last too long, and the topic shifted to Yaoang Valley. Many monks who came here for the reputation were full of longing, hoping to use this opportunity to achieve a counterattack. Some of them either want to obtain precious medicines to impact their realms and soar to the sky, or they are medicine dealers who want to make a fortune by reselling famous medicines. In short, the Medicine King Valley at that time will definitely be a place where dragons fight and tigers fight. On the other side, in a higher corridor, a graceful woman in yellow crossed her arms and sneered, Uncle Fan, did you hear that? Everyone is scolding Yi Junlin and others. If you ask me, this is what people want. Fan Desheng sighed. Miss, they are just talking nonsense, and strong people of that level will not be shaken by rumors from the outside world. Even if thousands of people point fingers at them, what does it matter? Uncle Fan, why do you always speak for that big bastard? And Miao Yi stomped her feet in anger and complained. Fan Desheng smiled bitterly. Okay, I won't say anything, right? Go to the room and see if there is anything missing. I will ask the store to add it immediately. And Miao Yi snorted and turned her head to walk into the exquisite wing room. Oh, this kid. Vander shook his head. Chapter 75. C-75 Murder in a Dream. Soon, the sumptuous meal was finished. Except for Bai Xiaoxi, who was very satisfied, the other three were all unhappy. Guys, please come this way. The waiter extended his hand enthusiastically and took them to their respective rooms. And Yi Junlin and the others happened to pass by Fan Desheng again. Fanda was looking at the hooded figures retreating in the distance, his heart skipping a beat inexplicably. Uncle Fan, what are you looking at? And Miao Yi walked out of the room with her little hands behind her back. I can feel that the strength of those people is unfathomable, especially the leader. It actually makes me feel powerless from the bottom of my heart. Fan Desheng said solemnly with a solemn look on his face. How is that possible? And Miao Yi's beautiful eyes widened, her pretty face full of disbelief. You must know that the great elder of the Taoist sect in front of you has reached the Mahayana perfection, and he has mastered several ancient secret techniques of the sect, and his strength is terrifying. As a result, even such a being was afraid of those people just now, especially the leader, who felt ashamed. Let me ask, how powerful should that person be? Could it be a virtual immortal? An idea flashed through her mind, and Miao Yi swallowed her saliva, and then rejected this ridiculous idea. Please, that's the realm of transcending tribulation. Among any force in the eastern region, they are aloof. Even in Taoist sect, one of the top 10 immortal sects, there are only a handful of strong people in the tribulation realm, and they don't show their bodies easily. They are either practicing in seclusion or choosing to sleep. Except for the white-haired old devil who took the lead in robbing their fleet before, and Miao Yi didn't think she would meet another one by chance. Uncle Fan, why do you need to boost other people's ambitions and destroy your own prestige? And Miao Yi said softly. Fan Desheng smiled bitterly and said, Miss, we'd better be careful when we go out. After all, it's the time when the Medicine King Valley is about to open. I don't know how many powerful practitioners are pouring into this inn. Even if there are seniors who are stronger than me, it's normal. Quote. Oh, and Miao Yi could only nod, but she still felt that Uncle Fan was overly worried. Late at night, the bright full moon hangs high in the sky, emitting cold moonlight. Yi Junlin stood with his hands behind his hands, looking at the beautiful scenery of the bamboo forest outside the window, his handsome face showing some emotion. It has been almost a year since I traveled to this world. Fortunately, thanks to Tongzi's attentive service, my life was pretty good. Ding, it has been detected that the host is very lonely. This system can provide free voice services. Would you like to enable the experience? Close black lens bracket. At this moment, the sweet Lolita sound sounded in my mind. Yes, it was the system. Yi Junlin was speechless. Tongzi, you are quite good at choosing the right time. Should I praise you, or should I praise you very much? No, Yi Junlin decisively refused. What kind of outrageous operation is it to have a voice chat with the system? If this spreads out, where will my face as a Chinese traveler be? Ding, the host actually refused. This system is so sad. Hey, hey, hey. Yi Junlin. Boom, boom, boom. There was a gentle knock on the door. Master, it's me, Shushu. A young and clear voice sounded. Come in. The door was pushed open. Bai Xiaoxi came over with the plate, picked up the cup and put it on the table. Master, this is your cappuccino. The design of this cup of coffee is a childlike smiling face, with steaming steam and rich aroma overflowing. Of course, the raw materials used are not the same as those in the previous life. If ordinary people drank it, their bodies would be unable to bear it and they might bleed to death. Yi Junlin picked up the cup and took a sip. The fragrance filled his lips and teeth, which was the ultimate enjoyment for his taste buds. Well, it tastes good, but you can add less sugar next time. Yi Junlin commented. Okay, Bai Xiaoxi nodded heavily, keeping it in mind. Go back and make yourself a drink as a reward. Thank you, master. Bai Xiaoxi felt that her labor had been rewarded, so she turned around and ran out happily. Hey, it is such a blessing for a disciple to have such a generous master like me. Yi Junlin took another sip of coffee and said with emotion. At first, I was thinking of training this white-haired rat into a super fighter. After all, with the great Luo immortal body and the support of top-notch skills, he should be able to dominate the world. But now it seems that this path has been completely completed. It went astray and became an existence that can go up to the hall and go down to the kitchen. Even so, this white-haired rat enjoys it, immersed in the sense of accomplishment of making delicious food, and maintains a pure and innocent character. Anyway, if you want to fight and kill, just leave it to the other two apprentices. Other side, in a shadowed corner of the Longmen Inn, more than a dozen strange figures with snake heads and human bodies walked out. Their eyes were dark purple, their forked tongues hissed out of their mouths, and their aura was particularly evil. Everyone looked towards the inn with their eyes filled with cruel and ferocious killing intent. Distinguished Lord Priest, are you sure you need to take action now? One of his subordinates asked respectfully. Yukayagu wears a silver crown and gorgeous robes that symbolize status. He holds a staff inlaid with emeralds, emitting a mysterious green light in the night. It hissed and stuck out its tongue, its eyes were cruel and ferocious, and its cold and gloomy voice sounded like it was coming from hell. In order to weaken the resistance of the human race, tonight's massacre plan will start from this inn. All for the holy war of the underworld. The men behind him said solemnly. Yes, this group of creatures came from the evil snake clan among the hundreds of tribes in the abyss. This time, they were led by the senior priests of the tribe and specially sneaked into Tianling City to carry out an assassination mission. They understood that because the Medicine King Valley was about to open, this city would be filled with monks from all over the eastern region, including many powerful human beings with advanced cultivation. In this case, they might as well take advantage of this moment to clear out some of the backbone for the Mingyuan army's counterattack. Lay a solid foundation in the eastern region. Of course, the reason why they dare to do this is naturally based on something. But now, because Longmen Inn has the largest number of guests, Yelugu and the others are eyeing it. Act immediately and start setting up the dream formation. Yelu said coldly. The fantasy formation is an extremely ancient formation. The outside world has almost lost records about it, but it is still well preserved in the evil snake clan. This formation can make people sleep silently and enter a dream composed of desires, until the spirit is wiped out and reduced to an empty shell of a walking corpse. There must be no interruptions during this period, otherwise there is a risk of failure. Swish, swish, a dozen evil snake clan creatures set off separately, occupying various positions in the Longmen Inn. They cut their palms with knives, purple blood flowed out, and then they drew lines on the ground. The ancient and obscure lines gradually took shape, exuding an extremely weird aura, and the whole body shone with a strange purple glow. Invisibly, a mysterious and strange force enveloped Longmen Inn silently. More than a dozen creatures of the evil snake clan were maintaining the formation, not daring to show any signs of fatigue. They were concentrating on it, fearing that anything might go wrong. Because once there is a mistake, it will cause loopholes, causing individual sleeping monks to wake up and disrupt the entire plan. The mana in Yelugu's body surged and boiled, crazily pouring into the staff in his hand, and the emerald exuded a breathtaking brilliance. Yelugu believed that with his cultivation in the Mahayana realm and the other dozen or so backbone members of the clan in the fusion realm, if he used the dream formation with all his strength, it would be enough to bring down all the creatures below the tribulation realm. Many monks staying in the hotel began to fall asleep unknowingly. Some were lying on the table with saliva flowing from the corners of their mouths. Some remained in a meditating posture, but their spirits had fallen into sleep. At this time, they were all having sweet dreams, realizing their long-awaited wishes in their dreams. On the broken battlefield, the monks from all over the Kunlun realm were desperate. They watched the alien army bloodbath in all directions. The scene was extremely miserable, like the end of the world. "Heaven is going to destroy me, Kunlun," a white-haired old man shouted sadly. The alien army was raging like locusts, massacring cities and exterminating tribes wherever it went, leaving mountains of corpses and seas of blood everywhere. At this moment, a shocking sword light came like a divine punishment, and struck the alien army with a devastating impact. Countless aliens screamed miserably, and their souls were extinguished. Which strong man took action? The alien general showed fear on his face. "It's me," a loud and majestic voice echoed in the sky. Above the sky, stood a stalwart figure with wavy hair. When his eyes opened and closed, a cold light shot out from the sky. He was holding a 40-meter-long sword, and his posture was extremely domineering. It's him, the sword god Li Wuji." Countless men and women cried with joy as the savior of the Kunlun world appeared. "The god of swords, you are the god of swords." Known as the strongest swordsman in the Kunlun world, the first person in the art of swords throughout the ages. The alien general looked horrified, almost shouting out of fear. Snort. Li Wuji's eyes were like lightning, and his tone was unquestionable. "Anyone who offends our Kunlun will be punished." After saying that, he swung the 40-meter-long sword and slashed hard. The entire world was cut off, the universe and galaxies were dimmed, and even the avenues were obliterated. "Ah!" The group of alien creatures wailed, and were annihilated by this earth-shattering sword light and turned into nothingness. "Sword god Li Wuji, you are our great hero." Boiling cheers rang out from everywhere in the Kunlun world. Everyone knelt down to worship and shed tears of gratitude. "Kunlun realm, I will protect it." Li Wuji looked serious, raised the 40-meter-long sword high, and made the strongest voice in the world. In another illusion, on the high throne, a slender figure sat on it. Wherever his leering gaze reached him, all the powerful men in the world surrendered and knelt down obediently like slaves, not daring to say a word. Hong Chenny raised her chin slightly, and an evil smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Now that all his former enemies have been killed, no one in this world can be his opponent. "I hereby declare that the era of the rule of the fire worship demon cult has arrived." The cold voice echoed throughout the Kunlun world, as if the gods were transmitting messages, lasting for a long time. The leader's power is boundless. Hundreds of millions of believers shouted with fanaticism, their voices shaking the heavens and the earth. "Ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha." Hong Chenny sat on the supreme throne, raised her head and let out a loud laugh of satisfied ambition. Chapter 76. C-76 Dancing Snakes. This is a world full of innocence and fantasy. What flows down the mountain stream is not water, but sweet and delicious cream. Each blooming flower represents candy of various flavors. The soil is made of chocolate, and the inside of the rock is actually cake. Roasted chickens are flying, cooked cows are running, and even birds and beasts are ready-made food. As long as you wave your hand, it will come over and be served to you. Many colorful elves, holding hands and laughing happily, there is no fighting, no intrigue, no bloodshed, and everywhere is full of peace and peace. Bai Xiaoxi is enjoying the delicious food happily, wandering between the mountains and fields. As long as she gets tired of eating, she will change it, and she can find new and strange food every time. Shua, Bai Xiaoxi took off from the ground and landed on the soft clouds. The clouds are made of cotton candy, and it is soft and comfortable to lie on them. It's so nice here, Bai Xiaoxi smiled sweetly, and fell asleep in a dream after eating and drinking enough. The whole inn was filled with snoring, and everyone was immersed in their own dreams. However, there was only one person who was an exception. At this time, Yi Junlin looked at the bright moon outside the window, and felt a little depressed when he remembered that he had been blamed for no reason. I thought that with his appearance and strength, he had already made a great reputation and would have a large number of fans in Wuzhou. Unexpectedly, they were all black fans. All this was caused by traitors, who cheated and deceived under his banner, and discredited his perfect image of being wise, powerful, tall, invincible and righteous. Yi Junlin sighed and said, "Alas, the world is really going downhill, and people's hearts are not as good as they used to be. Ding, it is detected that the host has not signed in for 2 months. Do you want to complete the sign-in? Closing square bracket." The system prompt sounded. "Sign," Yi Junlin said. "Ding, congratulations to the host for winning 1 million top-grade spirit crystals. Closing square bracket. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning 5 top-grade flame explosion talismans. Closing square bracket. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning 10 bags of top-grade pet animal feed. Closing square bracket. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning the first-place flute in the universe, the Immortality Flute. Closing square bracket. All the rewards obtained by signing in have been automatically stored in the system space." Yi Junlin raised his eyebrows. "Immortality Flute? Tongzi, what grade is this thing?" "Ding, there is no grade, the power of the flute depends entirely on the host's flute-playing skills and his own cultivation. Closing square bracket." The system replied thoughtfully. Yi Junlin suddenly remembered that his flute-playing skills seemed to be at the top level. Feeling the long night and thinking of the turmoil encountered today, Yi Junlin wanted to play a song for no reason to relieve his inner depression. Swish! The light flashed in his hand, and a green flute appeared, with a green glow flowing all over the body, exuding a mysterious and ancient atmosphere. "This is the Immortality Flute." Yi Junlin held the flute with both hands and put it to his mouth to play. In an instant, the sound of the flute was crisp and melodious, echoing with an ethereal meaning. Yi Junlin did not use his cultivation, but simply played the flute by feeling. Even so, he released circles of magical ripples, forming a kind of resonance between heaven and earth. Whoosh, whoosh, the room was filled with wind. Yi Junlin's silver-white long hair fluttered, his eyes were bright and blazing, and his whole body was ethereal, as if he was a banished immortal playing the flute above the 9 heavens. What sound? The faces of more than a dozen evil snake creatures changed, fearing that someone would interrupt their formation. Strangely, they did not receive any harm, as if this was just a simple melody, particularly gentle and beautiful. What a wonderful music, it reminds me of my life in the tribe when I was a child. One of the tribesmen was intoxicated, hissing and sticking out his tongue, and his body couldn't help twisting, dancing gracefully to the rhythm. "Tulu, what are you doing?" Yelu Jiyu noticed something was wrong and shouted. As a result, the tribe member ignored him and danced to the sound of the flute. Perhaps it was because of the characteristics of snakes that their bodies were extremely flexible. This was not over yet. One after another, the creatures of the evil snake tribe gave up maintaining the dream formation and immersed themselves in their own world. They danced so hard that they either twisted their waists or shook their hips. The scene was very eye-catching. You guys," Yelu Jiyu was shocked, his eyes widened. He had never seen such a bizarre scene in his life. Soon, Yelu Jiyu realized that everything was caused by this beautiful flute. The flute can stimulate the characteristics of snakes and make its tribe members dance to the sound of the flute. "Who is doing this? Get out of here, priest!" Yelu Gu's face was fierce, and his sharp fangs flashed coldly. Suddenly, its pupils gradually lost focus, and its hands clasped together to make a flower on its head, imagining itself as a sunflower, its body swaying in the wind, and a mysterious smile on the corners of its mouth. As they were all dancing, the dream formation stopped working. Inside the Longmen Inn, Fan Desheng suddenly woke up and felt a sense of fear. I just fell into a trap. Fan Desheng knew very well that a practitioner of his level would not fall into a dream for no reason. There must be a mastermind behind the scenes. Not good. Fan Desheng thought of something, disappeared from the spot, and directly broke into the other side of the room. In front of him, and Miaoyi was sitting cross-legged in meditation, with a calm and peaceful face, eyes closed, no sign of waking up, and a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Obviously, this is a beautiful dream. Miss, wake up quickly. Fan Desheng made a secret with one hand and shot out a stream of light that fell into the eyebrows of the woman in yellow. And Miaoyi's delicate body trembled, her long eyelashes trembled, and her beautiful eyes opened with a look of confusion. Uncle Fan, why are you? We have fallen into a trap. Fan Desheng said solemnly. Fell into a trap, and Miaoyi wrinkled her nose, as if thinking of something, and said with palpitations, no wonder I feel like I don't want to wake up, and the deeper I get into it, the more exhausted I become. If I guessed correctly, the enemy has set up a dream formation. This is one of the ancient and evil formations in rumors. It can make people fall into a deep sleep without anyone noticing until they wake up quietly in their sleep. Die. Fan Desheng said with a gloomy expression. Even a strong person like him, who is a perfect Mahayana, is trapped in it and unable to extricate himself. If it really drags on, his life will really be decided here. There were no traces of a fight, he just died silently. Thinking of this, Fan Desheng felt a chill down his back and secretly felt lucky. And Miaoyi couldn't believe it. They are so vicious, what is their purpose for doing this? Is it to kill people and steal wealth? Miss, don't run around. I'll go outside to check on the situation. Fan Desheng said in a deep voice. Whoosh, the figure disappeared in an instant. In an instant, they were above the inn. Fan Desheng's pupils shrank, abyssal creatures. At the same time, Yelagu and the others were no longer dancing, because the sound of the flute was suddenly interrupted, allowing them to regain consciousness, and their expressions were all surprised and uncertain. Master Priest, some tribesmen had numb scalps and were very worried about the strange phenomenon just now. Can this plan continue? Yelagu's eyes were full of murderous intent, and he said in a cold voice, although I was interrupted just now, most human monks will choose to continue sleeping because of the beauty of their dreams. As long as they are repaired in time, they still have a chance. Stop. An angry shout sounded. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Tabula below article thumbnail. 300 times 250 feet. Placement. Below article thumbnail -300 times 250 feet. Target _type. Mix. Chapter 77. C77. Is this a new form of provocation? Fan Desheng flashed over, his eyes were like lightning, and he said angrily, the evil beast in the abyss actually dares to take action against us humans. Yelagu's eyes showed fear, and he said coldly, so what? Our Mingyuan army is bound to sweep across the eastern region. Isn't it too much to kill you monks in advance? You are so brave, this is the territory of my human race. Fan Desheng waved his hand, and held the 3-foot green sword in his hand. The sword shined like stars, exuding a sacred aura. Human Mahayana monks, don't think that this priest is afraid of you. Even though he was 2 small steps behind, Yelagu was still confident. HMPH, who do you think I am? It turns out to be a monster from the abyss. Not far away, Li Wuji's eyes were as sharp as an eagle, and he appeared menacingly with a long knife. Immediately afterwards, there was a cold voice filled with murderous intent. How dare you, dirty and lowly creatures like you, plot against me? Aha! Hong Chenny appeared in a flash with her hands behind her back. I saw this demon sect leader, with a flawless and beautiful face, full of strong murderous intent, and phoenix eyes burning with golden divine flames, as if he wanted to burn all things, and his aura was unmatched. 2 more Mahayana monks are here. At this time, cold sweat broke out on Yelagu's and the others' foreheads. 2 fellow Taoists. Fan Desheng's eyelids twitched. Whether it was the middle-aged man holding a knife or the woman in red, he felt completely oppressed. Most importantly, what's going on with this inexplicable feeling of familiarity? Fan Desheng felt that these 2 people seemed to have met somewhere before. Hong Chenny and Li Wuji apparently took advantage of the pause in the formation to realize that they had fallen into a trap, and then reluctantly left the dreamland. After regaining consciousness, they felt very annoyed. On the one hand, they hated the other party for using such methods, and on the other hand, they felt like their dream had been shattered and they had returned to the cruel reality. So, let's just put the blame on Yelagu and the others. Master Priest, the subordinates were frightened and trembling. After all, the opponent had 3 Mahayana masters. Yelagu was panicked at first, but then regained his composure and said in a deep voice, "Pour all your strength into me, quickly." Yes. The men immediately followed suit, and surging power poured into Yelagu. Boom! Yelagu's eyes were about to burst, and strong evil energy was released from his whole body. He held the staff in both hands and raised it above his head. The emerald on the top of the staff was vibrating violently, and then it crackled and was covered with turtle marks. A huge green light group was released, shrouded in Yelagu and the others. Yelagu's heart felt like it was bleeding, because he knew that his most valued weapon was useless, but fortunately, it was worth it to get the chance to escape. No, they are trying to escape. Fan Desheng's expression changed, and he swung his sword to stab them with all his strength. Don't even think about it. Hong Chenny and Li Wuji were about to intercept. It's useless. This staff of mine was a sacred object given to me by the clan leader back then. Even if it were to cross the tribulation realm, it would be difficult to keep me. Let alone you, Yelu Ji said proudly. The green light group was blazing and bright, and was about to disappear into the void without a trace. At the critical moment, the sound of the flute came again, but this time it was rhythmic and contained some irresistible Taoist meaning. Hong Chenny and the others stopped unconsciously, with expressions of surprise on their faces. No, Yelagu realized something, and his proud smile disappeared and turned into grief and anger. The sound of this flute makes me feel like dancing. Li Wuji touched his nose, feeling ready to move. Hong Chenny frowned, instinctively thinking that it was that guy who did it. Then he looked forward. He seemed to have seen something shocking, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. Here, what are you doing? At this time, the dim green light group was annihilated, revealing a dozen enchanting figures. These creatures with snake heads and human bodies were either shaking their butts or twisting their waists, and their forked tongues were hissing in their mouths, as if they were immersed in a carnival party. And Yelagu was even more outrageous. It was seen holding a staff and sticking it straight into the ground, and then it danced boldly and fierily, sometimes spinning around, sometimes making difficult movements, as if it was not holding a staff, but a steel pipe. Fuck, are you provoking us? Li Wuj showed a disgusted expression, and the knife in his hand tightened. Red Chiba's scalp was numb and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Seeing the dance of these dozen snakes, he felt that he needed to rinse his eyes with water quickly. It's because of the sound of the flute. Fan Desheng was stunned at first, but then he realized what was happening and his heart was shocked. The rhythm of this flute sound is brisk, which seems to resonate with the avenue, and also contains the meaning of returning to nature. Listening to it, one can't help but fall deeply into it. The most frightening thing is that there is no cultivation blessing, just using musical notes to communicate with all things in the dark. Let me ask, what level of skill has the person who can do this reached? I am afraid that he has become the only one in the world and is regarded as the leader of the musicians in the eastern region. Fan Desheng knew that without this senior, the monks at Longmen Inn would be in danger. Sure enough, this inn is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Fan Desheng said with emotion. In the wing room, and Miaoyi's beautiful eyes lit up, she listened attentively, and said in surprise, "Who is playing the flute?" The sound of the flute is ups and downs, very brisk. The more Miaoyi listened, the happier she became. She felt that someone who could play such a tune must be a very interesting person. And outside, Yelagu's dance continues. It's so spicy. The hearts of Hong Chenny and the other two were pounding. Crap, crap, crap. I can't stand it. I'm going to kill them now. Li Wuji rushed forward with a knife in a panic. You disgusting beasts, all of you, die. Hong Chenny hated it so much that he gathered his strength and slapped them hard. Poor Yelu Jiu was first chopped to death by a random knife, and then slapped into ashes by a palm. The rest of his men followed in his footsteps. Fan Desheng was stunned. Is he so fierce? He hasn't started yet. On the other side, Yi Junlin was playing the flute. The reason why he stopped halfway was because he wanted to change his style and try to change his mood. It felt good. Playing the flute when he had nothing to do could cultivate his sentiments and please his body and mind. As for the turmoil in the outside world, Yi Junlin naturally knew about it, but he was too lazy to care about it. Anyway, there were 2 apprentices to deal with it. After a while, after Yi Junlin finished playing the flute, he seemed to have some feelings. He walked over and opened the door. In front of him stood a graceful, fair-skinned, charming and lovely woman in yellow. Originally, Miaoyi was still immersed in the sound of the flute. Seeing the door suddenly open, she was frightened and took a few steps back. Her hands were nervously intertwined. Her watery eyes were as clear as a spring, reflecting the handsome young man with long silver white hair hanging down to his waist. That ethereal temperament was like a banished immortal descending from the top of the cloud. And Miaoyi's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She didn't expect that this musician was actually a heavenly figure. She was originally eloquent and eloquent. When she saw Yi Junlin, her face flushed slightly, and she stammered, "Senior, I'm sorry to bother you. I actually want to." Yi Junlin's eyes lit up, and he immediately pulled her in and slammed the door. The two looked at each other. Yi Junlin urged excitedly, "Hurry up, give me your pussy." Ah, and Miaoyi suspected that she had heard it wrong, and her mind went blank for a moment. Chapter 78, C78 Come on, I believe you can do it. Quick, give it to me. Yi Junlin looked anxious and stretched out his hand as if to ask for something. And Miaoyi's pretty face turned red and her head felt dizzy. As the daughter of the leader of the Taoist sect, she has seen too many young talents use various tricks and methods to please herself, just to win her favor. But this is the first time and Miaoyi has seen a boy like tonight who goes straight to the point without beating around the bush. Although she was attracted by Yi Junlin's flute sound and was a little moved by his handsome image, and Miaoyi felt that it was too much for Meng Lang to make such a request as soon as they met. It's quite a favorable impression. As her thoughts turned, and Miaoyi pushed the silver-haired young man in front of her away, shook her head and said, "Master, please be respectful, I am not that kind of casual woman." This time it was Yi Junlin's turn to be confused. "What's the meaning? I just want a pen. Do you have to be so serious? Girl, are you sure you don't want my autograph?" Yi Junlin asked tentatively. And Miaoyi was stunned, her brain spinning rapidly, and then she realized that she had thought wrongly. Instantly, her face became even redder, like a big red apple. But soon, and Miaoyi adjusted her state in time and asked with a puzzled face, "Why do I want your autograph? Are you famous in the eastern region?" Yi Junlin was choked. He was afraid that this girl didn't know him. "The flute you play is very nice. You are obviously a musician and must be very famous in your local area. However, I have never seen you before. I was just attracted by your flute sound, so I dared to come and visit." And Miaoyi explained. Yi Junlin was a little embarrassed, "So that's it, it was me who was abrupt. However, we are destined to meet each other. I am An Miaoyi, a local from Guangzhou. May I ask your surname?" And Miaoyi said politely. "Hello, Miss An, my name is Yi Fan." Yi Junlin paused for a moment and said, "I'm from Guangzhou." Yi Junlin had a hunch that this time the Yaowang Valley gathered heroes from all over the world, and the group of imposters would definitely take this opportunity to do something big again, so he thought it would be better to conceal his true identity first to avoid unnecessary complications and prevent the news from being leaked in advance. "Are you from Guangzhou?" And Miaoyi opened her beautiful eyes and lightly covered her delicate lips. "Yeah, what's wrong, Mr. Yi? Actually I had a very bad impression of Guangzhou before. The elders said that it was a backward and barren land. It was the most insignificant dojo in the eastern region. It would be difficult to even produce a god. And Miao follow the truth." Yi Junlin was not angry and nodded, "Indeed. In the past, in Guangzhou, Yuanying could walk sideways, let alone the transformed spirit. But now, the appearance of Xuantian sect has refreshed my understanding of Guangzhou. I suddenly discovered that this is a seriously underestimated place." And Miaoyi said. Yi Junlin smiled and said, "So, your impression of Guangzhou has improved now?" "No, it's worse." "What?" Yi Junlin was stunned. And Miaoyi put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Yi Junlin, the master of Piaomiao Peak of Xuantian sect, relies on his advanced cultivation to do all kinds of evil. During this period, he brought his disciples to Wuzhou to loot various monks. Uncle Fan and I have both become victims. A great virtual immortal in the tribulation stage can actually do such a despicable thing. It is really a shame to the cultivation world of the eastern region." Ahem. Yi Junlin coughed a few times and said solemnly, "Miss An, I think there must be some misunderstanding. In the eyes of us Guangzhou people, Yi Junlin is a perfect man who is unique in the world. Not only is he powerful and well-behaved, but he also has a face that is so impeccably handsome that it explodes in all directions. Even I, a man, almost fell in love with him when I saw him." "You said, how could such an excellent man do something that tarnishes his reputation? It's not like that." Hear the words, and Miaoyi looked strange and stared straight at the silver-haired young man in front of her. If she hadn't seen Yi Junlin with her own eyes, she would have been deceived before. She must believe that he is powerful, but An Miaoyi scorns it because of his good character and handsome appearance. "Mr. Yi, there is no one else here." You can tell me the truth without worrying about the content of your words being leaked and causing the white-haired old devil to take revenge. And Miao Yi said with a sincere tone, her beautiful eyes twinkling. Yi Junline's mouth twitched. Miss N, you have a very rich imagination. Hey, judging from Mr. Yi's performance, it is enough to prove how heinous the white-haired old devil is. He uses cruel methods to oppress the people of Guangzhou and forces you to open your eyes and tell lies. In fact, your fear of the white-haired old devil is it has penetrated deep into the bone marrow, and life must be very hard on weekdays, right? Don't be afraid, justice will eventually defeat evil. I will work hard to become stronger, and then I will take the life of the white-haired old devil and save the suffering people of Guangzhou. And Miao Yi waved her fists, looking filled with indignation. Yi Junline said. He could finally see that this woman was full of hatred for Yi Junline, but full of sympathy for him. And Miao Yi frowned. Mr. Yi, what's your expression? Am I right? Yes, yes. Yi Junline gave a thumbs up. Come on, I'm very optimistic about you. Defeat Yi Junline and save Guangzhou. I will. And Miao Yi nodded heavily, not hearing anything wrong with this sentence. Yi Junline. Haha, by the way, Mr. Yi, you have to be careful, this inn has been. Before Miao Yi finished speaking, she sensed something and decisively opened the door and walked out. Uncle Fan, I'm here. Swish. Fan Desheng flashed over and said seriously, Miss, why are you here? Didn't I tell you to stay in the room? And Miao Yi scratched her cheek with her fingers, feeling a little embarrassed. Just now I heard someone playing the flute, and I thought the tune was very nice, so I followed the source to find here. Wait, you mean, you found the owner of the flute? Fan Desheng's eyes lit up and said excitedly. This is a real boss who resolved the crisis of the entire inn. Chapter 79, C79 The Medicine King Valley is open. Yes, he's here, and Miao Yi pulled Yi Junline out with one hand and introduced, his name is Yi Fan. Master Yi, I admire your skills. Fan Desheng's face changed slightly and he cupped his hands. Somehow, seeing Yi Junline's personal image, his heart skipped a beat. Yi Junline smiled and said, it's easy to talk, it's just a special skill that I'm good at. Seeing Uncle Fan's complimentary behavior, and Miao Yi felt a little strange. Aha, brush. At this time, Hong Chenny and Li Wuji fell next to Yi Junline respectively. I have met two fellow Taoists. Fan Desheng did not dare to neglect. After all, he had seen how powerful these two people were. Hong Chenny opened his mouth and was about to say the word, Master, when he suddenly heard a secret voice transmission, causing him to hold it back and said with a strange look on his face, Brother Yi, the problems outside have been solved. Quote. That's good. Yi Junline smiled and nodded. These two are, and Miao Yi's eyes widened, her eyes almost focused on Hong Chenny, marveling at this person's appearance and temperament. So beautiful, like a fairy. Yi Junline said seriously, the one in red is named Wang Kuiwa, and the one with the knife is named Li Taidan. Hong Chenny cast an incredulous look, what are you doing? Oh my god, Wang Kuiwa. This is not my name. As a result, when he came into contact with Yi Junline's meaningful eyes, the all-powerful leader of the demon cult was defeated like a frost. He lowered his head and said with difficulty, yes, my name is Wang Kuiwa. When she said this name, Hong Chenny suddenly felt a little ashamed, and her dissatisfaction with Yi Junline rose to a new level. Li Wuji scratched his head, yes, my name is Li Taidan. Li Wuji didn't care. As long as it was the master's order, he would 100% listen to it without any complaints. I've met two fellow Taoists. And Miao Yi nodded, especially surprised by Hong Chenny's name, which was seriously inconsistent with his image. She is so good-looking, but she turns out to be called Wang Kuiwa, which is a pity. Then, the few of them were polite to each other for a while, and then Miao Yi was pulled back by Fan Desheng. Master, you were, Li Wuji said tentatively. Yi Junline put one hand behind his back and held the flute in front of his abdomen. He pretended to cough a few times and said solemnly, this is how I feel, that group of counterfeiters will probably take action again. It's best these days. Don't leak any information to avoid alerting others. Master is wise, Li Wuji complimented. Hong Chenny cursed in her heart, saying so, but why should he be called Wang Kuiwa? Are you a genius at naming? Other side, Fan Desheng said with emotion, that Mr. Yi is very extraordinary. He didn't show up tonight, but he was able to control the enemy with the sound of the flute, resolve this crisis, and play with those abyssal creatures in the palm of his hand. I admire him, I admire him. Quote. Uncle Fan, is it such an exaggeration? And Miao Yi said in surprise. Furthermore, I could see that the other two people were vaguely respecting him during the whole process, which further convinced me that Mr. Yi was powerful. Fan Desheng was thinking deeply, and for some reason, when those people get together, they give me an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Uncle Fan, don't think too much. Mr. Yi and the others are all good people. When the Medicine King Valley opens, you can consider traveling with them, and Miao Yi said. Fan Desheng said solemnly, Miss, you know people but don't know their hearts. You have stayed in the Taoist sect for too long since you were a child, and you don't know the dangers of the outside world. If you ask me, these people reveal something weird. We still have to be cautious. After all. Oh, Uncle Fan, why are you becoming more and more preachy like my dad? I just couldn't stand my dad's nagging, so I thought of running out. I'm sleepy now. I want to go to bed. See you in the morning. And Miao Yi quickly slipped into the room and slammed the door. Fan Desheng was stunned, then shook his head and sighed. Sect Master, your precious daughter is really difficult to take care of. Early morning hours. The guests in the inn were waking up one after another. They had no idea what happened last night, and they were even satisfied with the dreams they had last night. Master, this is your tiramisu. Bai Xiaoxi held the plate and gently placed the newly prepared dessert on the table. Yi Junlin picked up the spoon, took a sip, showed a satisfied smile on his face, and praised, Xiaoxi, you are really a genius in cooking food. Hee, actually it doesn't happen either. Bai Xiaoxi scratched his head, and when he heard the master's praise, his body squirmed and he felt very happy. By the way, did you sleep well last night? Yi Junlin asked deliberately. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxi's eyes brightened and she said excitedly, Master, Shushu had a sweet dream last night. There were many delicious things in the dream, including everything. After Shushu had eaten and drank enough, I just lay on the clouds and had a wonderful sleep. Yi Junlin smiled and said, haha, it sounds interesting. Sure enough, this white-haired rat was so heartless that he could still sleep even in his dreams. Master, does the kind of world described by Shushu really exist? Shushu really wants to see it. Bai Xiaoxi said longingly. Yi Junlin touched its head, the universe is so big, maybe the kind of world you mentioned really exists. If you have the chance, I will take you there as my teacher. Okay, Bai Xiaoxi jumped up happily, like an innocent child. Just then, 100 miles away from Tianling City, a valley guarded by a mysterious taboo formation erupted with huge movement. Boom boom, dazzling beams of light shot up into the sky, and countless runes circled in the sky like tadpoles, and the whole valley released an irresistible breath. In an instant, the faces of the cultivators who were paying close attention to the situation changed drastically, and then their eyes were filled with surprise. The Medicine King Valley is open! The Medicine King Valley is open! The exclamations came one after another, shaking the earth. This news also spread quickly to Tianling City. Boom! Tianling City suddenly erupted in a sensation. Whether it was the streets and alleys, inns and taverns, or even brothels, you could see cultivators quickly moving, flying into the air and stepping on flying swords. Swish swish swish, the sound of breaking wind was sharp and piercing. In the air, densely packed cultivators were rushing to the Medicine King Valley, dragging out countless tails of different colors. Strange, it's not the same as the time predicted by the rumors. It opened so suddenly this time. In the corridor, and Miao Yi looked at the mighty figures of monks in the sky and smacked her lips. Let's go. Fan Desheng looked solemn, pulled Miao Yi up and disappeared from the spot. After a while, the two were already 10,000 meters away. Master, it's time for us to set off. Hong Chenyi and Li Wuji appeared, bowed and said in a deep voice. Yi Junlin finished his tiramisu slowly, took Bai Xiaoxi's hand and walked out of the door. Let's go to Yaowang Valley. Chapter 80. C80 The Truth Hidden in the Medicine King Valley. At this time, the Medicine King Valley is surrounded by a mysterious and hazy energy mist, and the medicinal fragrance wafting out of it is refreshing. Countless monks looked intoxicated and sniffed hard, as if just taking a few more puffs would improve their cultivation greatly. Ha ha ha, I can already feel that there are countless treasures of heaven and earth waiting for me inside. If I can get a top-grade precious medicine, I will be sure to break through from the body to the Mahayana, achieve the name of a venerable, and live 50,000 years, free in the world. The best treasure medicine. This fellow Taoist really dares to think that as long as I can successfully obtain an ordinary treasure medicine, I will be satisfied. Hee, this is the famous Medicine King Valley. Not to mention the rare treasure medicine in the world, even the Medicine King must have it. If you can get a Medicine King, it will be more than enough to break through the tribulation. Hiss, you mean Medicine King? This kind of extremely rare medicinal material will probably beat a big boss in the tribulation realm to a bloody head. Is it something that small characters like you and I can covet? There was a buzz of people all around and the noise was extremely noisy. Looking around, a large number of figures gathered at the entrance of Yawang Valley, and the ground and sky were full of darkness. The monks from all over the world were very excited, and their minds were filled with thoughts of having adventures and soaring into the sky. After all, Medicine King Valley opens once every 100,000 years. 100,000 years is such a long time, even for most practitioners, it is unimaginable. Even the so-called Supreme Mahayana Realm Masters can only live for 50,000 years. If they miss it once, they will not be able to wait until the next time it is activated. Therefore, it is such a blessing for many monks to encounter this opportunity. Many people in the crowd were thinking wildly, hoping to obtain more precious medicines, and some even had their thoughts set on the King of Medicines. As we all know, medicinal materials are also divided into 3, 6 or 9 grades, namely elixir, treasure medicine, king medicine, great medicine king, and fairy medicine. In the middle, it is divided into low grade to top grade. In the world of cultivation, elixirs are the mainstay. Anyone who reaches the level of precious medicines will hold a major auction, attracting competition from all parties. If you just throw one out casually, it will blow your mind. As for the medicine king, it is extremely rare. In the past tens of thousands of years, there has been very little trace of the medicine king in the eastern region. This kind of famous medicine would make even the tribulation realm jealous, let alone the Mahayana realm. Uncle Fan, can Yawang Valley accommodate so many people at one time? The competition is too fierce. And Miaoyi looked around and said in surprise. According to records, Yawang Valley has a limit on the number of people and time, and if a monk's life is in danger, he will be teleported out by the Yawang Valley's formation. Generally speaking, Yaozin's arrangements back then were very appropriate. I and other juniors can receive his kindness, and there is really no way to repay him. Fan Desheng put his hands behind his back and expressed emotion on his face. He admired the ancient sage's actions very much. Grandpa Yaozin, he must be a good man. And Miaoyi said with a smile. Suddenly, Fan Desheng noticed something and felt alarmed. He glanced around the vast sea of people, his eyes full of deep fear. Uncle Fan, what's wrong with you? And Miaoyi asked curiously. Fan Desheng said solemnly, Miss, you are right, the competition will be really fierce this time. After entering later, you must not act without authorization. You must always stay with me. Just now he sensed that there were at least a dozen powerful auras, no less powerful than him, a perfect Mahayana monk. There are even some hidden tribulation experts among them. It can only be said that the attraction brought by Yawang Valley this time is really great. At this time, a group of monks in cassocks chanted sutras with their heads lowered under the plane trees. Their whole bodies were filled with golden Buddha light, full of tranquility and peace. The leader was an old monk with a thin figure and a long white beard that hung down to his neck. He clasped his hands together, closed his eyes and meditated, standing quietly like a clay sculpture. Unlike the group of monks behind him, whose whole body was covered with Buddha light, he looked ordinary, without even the most basic sense of Zen. He was very ordinary. However, the group of monks behind him were very respectful to him. Because they knew that this person's cultivation level was unfathomable and he was a very senior person in Shuangkong Temple. Amitabha, with Master Randang leading us this time, we will definitely be able to bring enough famous medicines. A fat monk said. That's for sure. There were rumors in the Shuangkong Temple that as early as 100,000 years ago, Master Randang entered the Medicine King Valley alone and gained a lot of blessings, which further enhanced his strength. A companion said with envy. That's good, that's good. With Master Randang taking action, Yawang Valley must be in my possession of Shuangkong Temple. Several people looked at each other and smiled. This group of monks communicated with each other, so naturally they couldn't hide it from the old monk. Master Randang slowly opened his eyes, a look of helplessness flashed across his eyes, and an imperceptible bitterness showed at the corner of his mouth. Everyone in Shuangkong Temple knew that he had entered Yawang Valley 100,000 years ago, and immediately went into seclusion after coming out. He made a breakthrough in cultivation, and thought he had obtained good fortune from it. Actually, this is not the case. Yawang Valley is much more than what it appears on the surface, and there are hidden mysteries within it that are simply unimaginable. After many monks came out, their Taoist hearts almost collapsed, and they refused to mention what happened inside. Each and every one of them tacitly concealed the truth inside Yawang Valley. Among them, there were some kind-hearted people who couldn't bear it in the following days and wanted to reveal what they had experienced inside, so as to warn the younger generation to proceed with caution. As a result, he was silenced by the insider who came to the door. It was as if he had suffered the same hardships as I have, and the later ones must also suffer them. Of course, there are also stubborn people who want to write a book about what they saw and heard inside and make it public. Who would have thought that after the news was leaked, many former participants rushed to the scene that night and beat the man to death, scattered his ashes, and killed all his descendants to serve as a warning to others. So far, the truth of Medicine King Valley has been concealed, and the interval between opening every 100,000 years is too long, leaving only a mysterious color, so every time it will attract many uninformed monks, who rush to pursue opportunities, and then get beaten inside, fall into autism, and then conceal the inside story, and so on and so forth. Master Randang knows very well that there are very few people who know the inside story so far. After all, those who can survive for 100,000 years are all in the tribulation realm without exception. When he recalled what he had experienced, he felt humiliated and embarrassed. After returning, I practiced harder and became braver. After many years, I have made up for my shortcomings and my strength has improved by leaps and bounds. Even if I face those little guys in Yawang Valley again, I will be able to handle them with ease and even suppress them all. Master Randang said secretly with a gleam in his eyes. He wants to avenge his previous shame and make up for the psychological trauma of that year. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Tabula below article thumbnail. 300 times 250 feet. Placement. Below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet. Target _type. Mix.